After finding out 5 of his guys got hospitalized, an old-school mob boss marches straight into the rival gang's base to collect a blood debt. He casually flattens the terrified guards on his way to the rival boss's office, ready to make the guy pay with his life. But the rival, a smug dude in glasses, just tells him he's a washed-up boomer who hasn't realized the world changed, declaring it's time for a new chain of command. Before our MC can deliver the punishment, he gets sneak attacked from behind in a pre-planned trap. The old butcher doesn't go down easy, completely crushing faces despite his wounds, but he gets overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Glasses calls this massive beatdown a retirement ceremony. Later, our heavily wounded protagonist is limping through the rain, still hungry for revenge, but ultimately collapsing to the dirt. Knowing it is game over, his life flashes before his eyes. Since jumping into the underworld at 18, he spent 20 years doing pure villain behavior, oppressing the poor, offing cops, and crippling people just to become a boss. Realizing his garbage run is ending in the gutter, he actually breaks down crying, totally regretting everything. Suddenly, his consciousness gets dragged into a void that he assumes is hell or the afterlife. A mysterious voice demands to know if he truly regrets his life, telling him to answer fast. The mobster gets defensive since he cannot see who is talking, until the entity finally renders in. It is a blindingly bright being with dove wings that leaves our guy completely stunned, wondering if he just met an actual angel. The entity says it's looking at a deeply corrupted soul, completely despicable, without a shred of shame for doing evil. It would be right to send him to hell, to burn there for eternity. Now, society's victim starts to feel scared. However, the entity saw redemption in him and became interested. The mobster can't even understand this sermon, until he remembers his final moments when he truly felt regret. And he says he felt ashamed in that moment, since he's aware of the mistakes he made, and admits he's garbage. And that's exactly what wounds his pride. He'd rather accept the punishment since it's fair. That's when the entity asked what he'd do if he got another chance. Our mobster asked what kind of madness this is, but the entity wants an answer now. It was easy for the mobster to conclude he'd live differently and wouldn't kill anyone with these hands ever again, which left the entity quite curious and interested in this redemption, telling him his soul can no longer be saved, even if he lives differently. Not understanding any of it, a great light appeared. Our mobster is still furious that he doesn't understand a single thing until the light finally disappears, and he wakes up somewhere completely different. His clothes aren't the same anymore, and he has no scars. Standing up, he tries to understand what happened until he manages to see his own reflection in the mirror, which left him even more confused. The phone in that place started ringing, which made our guy answer it. On the other end, someone was scolding him, asking if he's really going to drop out of school. He doesn't recognize the voice on the other end, but it's the school principal. Quite furious, Mr. Kim ordered our guy to come back to school immediately. Our protagonist hung up the call. He remembers this teacher, and also remembers this house. Confirmation came when he saw the date on the calendar. He'd gone back 23 years into the past, back when he was just a young student. This is so overwhelming that he starts crying a lot, thanking that strange angel who gave him a new chance. Our guy immediately puts on his school uniform. He's thrilled to have his handsome looks back. If his soul is already condemned, that doesn't matter anymore. He's going to make the most of this chance to fix his past mistakes. This time, he's going to go to school normally and live a normal life. Our guy can't even remember how long it's been since he last walked down that street. That's when some thugs decided to talk to him. They want to know why our guy is heading to school at lunchtime. In the past, they used to be friends, doing mischief together. It was a lot of fun, and it was even nice to see that old friend again. But our guy forgot that he's young again now, and spoke too casually, which left that mobster a little bothered. Now he wants to correct that behavior. Our protagonist realized what he'd done and apologized for speaking that way, saying it's been a long time since they last saw each other. The mobster wanted to introduce our guy to someone important, but after those words, he's already regretting it. Little by little, our protagonist is starting to remember. It was on that very day that he was introduced to the criminal organization, all through this blonde companion. In other words, he's one of the people responsible for ruining society's poor victim's life. That's exactly why our protagonist starts getting furious. The blonde guy is still a bit upset, ready to discipline our protagonist, who wastes no time telling him to shut up. Our guy grabs the thug by the mouth and repeats the order to be quiet while calling him a piece of garbage. The poor guy has no idea why our guy is so strong. His buddy tried to react to that, but our protagonist reacts fast, catching the punch with one hand. Now he's ready to discipline someone, starting a session of free-of-charge beatdowns. after throwing the extra to the ground. That should teach them not to get in his way. Taking advantage of the blonde guy still trying to recover, he hits his mouth with a kick and then stomps on his chest right after. Now the tables have really turned. Our guy is genuinely upset about his past choices, believing his life was ruined because of that thug. That's exactly why he needs to pay. The blonde guy tries to beg for mercy, but our guy is already filled with hatred. And right before he hits him, he remembered he'd been given a second chance. That's not how he's going to solve his problems. Kicking the blonde guy one more time, he tells him not to be so shy, and that next time, he'll end up correcting him in a much harsher way. So, it's best they don't cross his path again. With tears in his eyes, the blonde guy has no idea what happened to our guy. This was way too sudden. Our protagonist doesn't want to ruin his second chance. It's time to make the most of his school life. Upon arriving there, he discovered he's about to be expelled, since he's already missed 36 days without explanation, not counting the thefts, the drinking problems, and other infractions. The principal is already fed up. He's been way too patient so far. Our protagonist felt quite disappointed, but he'll have to listen to the principal's lecture while trying to calm down after hearing all that news. After taking a deep breath, he asked the teacher for a frank conversation, claiming he went to school that day to get his life together and wouldn't like his plans to be ruined. He admits he's a jerk, one of the worst, which upsets the teacher even more. However, our guy says dropping out of school will only create more problems, and it's up to the teacher to help people like him. That caught the bald man off guard. He wasn't expecting that kind of reaction, since that student was known for being violent and a huge jerk. Maybe he could actually help the most problematic student in that place? He asked if our guy really plans to take this seriously, and our protagonist said he'll accept expulsion if he makes even one more mistake. Willing to believe him, the principal gave him one more chance. In a classroom, some delinquents are chatting. Even during class, they won't shut up. That's when our protagonist arrived. He couldn't even remember which classroom was his, but it didn't take long to recognize the delinquents, who are his friends. The teacher is the one who wasn't expecting him, and our guy greeted her very politely, which left that woman visibly surprised. This woman is the English teacher for that year. Since she's young and pretty, she's already caught the attention of the jerks. She tries to control the class so she can teach, but our protagonist used to be a huge jerk to her, leaving the woman easily embarrassed. The teacher tried to use her authority, but our protagonist had aggressive reactions, or at least pretended to. It was all very confusing, which left the teacher quite insecure. The truth is, she wished he'd never come back to that classroom. Some of the jerks believe she's going to quit her career. Hearing this, our protagonist corrected the delinquents. It's time for them to learn to behave. He also apologized to the teacher for arriving late. Nobody knows why he's acting this way. Our guy talked to a guy in glasses and asked him to share his notes too. The teacher was surprised he seems to be studying. He doesn't even seem like the same person, and our guy is really taking that seriously. But since he's never studied a day in his life, he's having trouble with that subject. The other delinquents went to ask what's going on, quite scared. Our guy said he's getting his life in order and recommended they do the same. Obviously, they didn't understand any of that. At the end of class, they went to the cafeteria while being watched by a girl. Our protagonist felt nostalgic for the taste of that juice. It's really quite good. His reaction just left his classmates even more confused. He ended up being approached by someone, a girl with black hair, who found out about his return. She said Yonggi would like to see him now. At first, he doesn't even know who that is, but he quickly remembers that name. That's when another thug decided to talk to him. That's Yonggi, a young delinquent who runs that school. In the past, they had no problems. Our protagonist asked him to get straight to the point. The young thug asked if he'd like to do a small job, and our guy told him to get lost. Since he doesn't think that fast, he stayed quiet for a while. Only then did he realize he'd already been given an answer. Our protagonist wants to know if he needs to say it again. He doesn't want to work with junkies. That insult left the others startled. Yonggi felt embarrassed, since nobody had ever caught on to that before. Since he turned red, that seems to be true. That's privileged information from the future. Our guy turned his back and told him not to bother him, recommending the thug quit the party powder while he still can. The thugs decided to teach him a lesson. One of the extras grabbed our guy by the shoulder. Time to act. A scream of pain filled that place. Our protagonist is already twisting the extra's arm. He asked if he should teach all of them a lesson, which left Yonggi furious. The group of thugs is ready to act. Our guy told them to come all at once, acknowledging it would be tough, squeezing the extra's hand even harder. He said if anyone got closer, he'd break those bones. They can feel our guy's malice, who claims to be just an innocent student, being harassed by thugs. Now he's going to settle this, challenging Yonggi to a fight. Unless, of course, he's scared, and the winner becomes the boss of the school. The extras are still furious, ready to finish off our guy, which made the protagonist remember he could break that hand. Yonggi is feeling increasingly provoked. He doesn't want to fall for these tricks. Our protagonist already noticed his plan is working, so he's just waiting. Yonggi told him to get lost, told our protagonist to release his subordinate and disappear from there. The extras don't want to let that happen, but Yoongi doesn't want to duel now and would very much like to preserve his subordinate's arm, making it quite clear he wouldn't like to be defied. Our protagonist released the extra, finally leaving that place. It was all a bluff. Our guy doesn't want to get into conflicts, afraid of wasting his second chance. As for Yoongi, he wants to know how they found out about his habit, determined to pay back this humiliation. It's time for gym class, and our protagonist is still worried about the future. He doesn't know how he'll support himself. He saw a girl with zero motor coordination and asked if she's mentally challenged. That ended up causing great embarrassment for her, and our protagonist immediately remembered her because of a small scar on her arm. She ended up being the victim of something really cruel, which ended up making her the subject of a news story. This girl left the server on her own. Her name is Sim Jae, and she's quite shy. Sitting on the bleachers, our guy thinks he should have noticed sooner. He can't forget the most important thing in this second life. Those people are part of his past mistakes, and the way things are going now, they're going to happen again. After a deep sigh, our guy realized he really lived a garbage life. It's time to apologize to that girl. But when he went looking for her, he found no one. He saw some students entering a place, which left him quite furious. Without thinking twice, Seok went to see what was happening, and the result couldn't be anything else. Time to deliver a bit of violence. The first one was already thrown far away, while the second one is being pummeled. They asked what Seok is doing, but our protagonist has no mercy. It's time to punish them. They weren't supposed to be bothering that girl. That's why they need to suffer. The poor girl watches everything, very confused, and the extras can't understand why they're being beaten. The questions just make the punishment worse, and one of them is already almost crying. Seok told them to disappear, or he'd get even more aggressive, since he's making a great effort to hold back. Quite injured, they left. Seok seems to understand things now, and why that girl ended up ruining her own life. Our guy went to her, asking if she's okay, but she seems quite uncomfortable. Seok doesn't know why she's avoiding him, looking quite scared. In the past, their first meeting was very trivial. Seok told her to get out of the way, since she was blocking the door. The girl said she'd dropped her pencils and apologized. Our guy walked past but was certain she's mentally challenged. That day he talked some nonsense with his friends and kept noticing that weird girl. He noticed she has no friends, discovering she'd been alone for a long time. Nobody knows for sure what caused that. She looks annoying, and nobody has the patience to get close to her. And in fact, Seok agreed with that so much, he decided to avoid her, at least in the traditional way. She was still one of his victims at that school. Making her a victim of his sadism became a rule, and while she suffers, our guy lives normally, considering that citizen completely pathetic. Now he understands why he was avoided, since to her, he's no different from those worms. Our guy didn't get a second chance for no reason. Approaching the weird girl, he apologized, mainly for the mark on her arm, which he himself caused. The girl was quite confused, but it seems our protagonist really is regretful. Rumors are spreading through the school. Some thugs are already missing teeth, and our protagonist is quite happy about that. For getting beaten like that, they want to take our guy to the police. Our guy said that won't solve anything. He'll get hit only once, but he'll make them pay, not to mention he saw exactly what happened earlier. Now the students are creating other rumors. Seok asked which of the two things is worse, what he did or what the jerks did. One of them started crying out of fear, and our guy told the others to pay attention. If anyone gets caught doing stupid things, they'll be disciplined. It seems the warning worked. Finally, our guy can rest a little. That's when he noticed someone's missing from the classroom. Time to ask the guy in glasses. Sim Jae hadn't returned to class, and it turns out she's in the infirmary. The guy in glasses wants to know if everything's okay, but our protagonist asked him to stay quiet. Our guy is afraid she'll do something stupid. Meanwhile, he's going to take a nap, and asked the guy in glasses to wake him up when class starts. To think all of this happened because of those two jerks. Finally, the teacher walked in. The class seems to be well organized. Our protagonist asks to borrow paper and a pen from the guy in glasses. He decided to make a list of things that should change, mistakes from his past life that need to be fixed. The first one is that weird girl. She's his top priority, but he doesn't know how to do it. Maybe he's improved her life a bit. The problem is she's still being looked down on by everyone. The solution is to end her loneliness, because that's the real problem. The teacher keeps teaching the class, and most of them seem completely uninterested. This school is trash, but it's really impressive how many students don't want to study. The teacher made it onto the list too, as well as quitting smoking and cursing. Aside from the most important thing right now, the situation with his own father. Not to mention he needs to graduate and find a job and all the other problems. Making friends would also be interesting, as well as finding real love, but that last part leaves our guy a little uncomfortable. The guy in glasses got curious, and our protagonist told him to stay a bit quieter. Class finally ended, and the teacher asked to talk to him before he leaves. It'd be better to do that in the teacher's lounge. Our guy ended up agreeing, and she already has a very specific matter to discuss. Before they talked, She was surprised by our guy's formality. He said he should have apologized to her a long time ago for the bad things he'd done. The teacher is surprised, but in a positive way. As she observed, our guy really has changed. She doesn't know how that happened, but she's sure of it. That's why she has something to ask him, but wants to know if he's capable. Our protagonist is now interested. Since the other students are afraid of him for being huge, she has a favor to ask. Seok believes it has to do with educating the other students, and what the teacher asked is for him to protect the weird girl. Simjae wasn't explicit, but told the teacher how our guy had been helpful. She went home early after the infirmary and she's frequently bothered. This is a situation the school can't resolve on its own. Seok asked if the teacher wants to leave this problem in the hands of a delinquent, but she believes in his change. This is the first time anyone's ever not treated him like a lunatic. She's the first person who's noticed his effort, so he promised no one will bother that girl anymore. Except our guy also has a condition, which left the teacher a bit scared, but he made it clear it's nothing serious. Even though the teacher was completely terrified, thinking of countless silly things, she said she can't, but our guy wants private English lessons. Only then did she realize what had happened. It seems he really wants to learn English. He's not going to college, he already knows that, but he wanted to know the basics of that language. Asking for help is still quite embarrassing, but the teacher agreed and is already eager to sort out the materials. Seok was even surprised by her enthusiasm. As he leaves, the teacher said she'd prepare excellent material. He really had changed a lot, and she's so excited. Even her colleagues noticed it. Seok is now heading back home. That first day was quite intense. He has no idea how he's going to endure this for the next 2 years, but looking at the horizon, he realized it might be better than he thinks. Our guy doesn't know why he's thinking that way. That's when he saw something interesting on that street. The weird girl is among the students. Seok immediately approached her and asked what she's still doing there. The two of them are now together looking at the horizon. Seok told her not to skip class because he's going to teach her how not to be a victim of the jerks, and that he'll help her with that. Simjae doesn't understand why this is happening. Our guy knows it's because he used to be a jerk to her too, and the truth is she's right to feel anxious. But patting her head, he said he's changed a lot. Of course, the girl is still confused, but that was enough for her to want to thank him. Seok immediately squeezed her head with his hand, saying that's not what she should thank him for, since she should curse him out for what happened. It's time for them to go their separate ways, but so far the girl hasn't said anything, and our protagonist told her to get home safe. Noticing she's grateful is something quite confusing. Being a kind person is something he's not used to, and that mysterious entity keeps watching our protagonist. He's only fixed a small fraction of his mistakes. That's why he's being watched. Seok remembered he has nothing interesting to eat at home, and that's what he's thinking about now. Arriving home, Seok went to check his to-do list. Since he went back in time, he has a lot of privileged information. In 3 years, something big is going to happen in the stock market, so he has an opportunity to become a great millionaire. But not everything can happen the way he wants. That entity said it would like to see his honesty, and before getting rich, our guy needs money to survive. He started cooking. He doesn't even remember the last time he did that. That's when someone else decided to arrive at that house too. It seems to be our guy's father, who just got back from work. Finding it strange that Seok got home early, he asked if he skipped class again. Our protagonist got emotional seeing his father. In his past life, he ended up in prison a few times. One day he received a visit. He doesn't know who it is, but seeing him, he got furious. It's his old father who came to visit. Seok completely ignored him, but the old man wanted to talk to him. Our guy said he never wants to see him again, since he doesn't have money to get him out of that place. The old man was completely devastated, but our protagonist did that to protect him. It'd be better for that old man not to worry about a criminal. Shortly after, the old man passed away. The guard there said the old man was a victim of excessive stress. It took a while to find him, since he had no one close to him. Seok suffered a lot during that time, feeling like a useless son, but now things have changed. The old man is right there, asking if his son isn't going to give him a hug. Seok said he made dinner and told the old man to wash his hands before eating. He asked if something special happened, and the boy said he's trying to be a better person. The old man is impressed by that maturity. His son really has changed. Seok cries, thinking if he'd been more careful in the past, his father's life would have been different. The two of them have dinner peacefully. When he was a kid, he didn't like his father, and that's quite understandable since the old man used to be an alcoholic. It was only when puberty made our guy grow big that the old man changed his life. He quit the habit and started working hard. But our guy took a while to discover that part about the addiction and swore the old man was working just to keep drinking. That only made him distance himself even more, even though the old man had changed. Seok regrets not noticing this sooner. When he became garbage, the old man never abandoned him. The boy started crying, and when questioned by his father, said the the noodles are too spicy. That's why the old man complained to him that he can't handle spicy food, he shouldn't overdo it. Early the next morning, the old man is already awake, complaining about back pain. Seok asked why his father won't rest that day, but the old man said everything's fine. No need to worry. Still not knowing how to choose his words, Seok asked his father to come home safe. To the old man, that's completely surprising, but he ended up agreeing. Seok sighs in relief when his father leaves. Thinking of that entity, he felt grateful, since he got to see his father one more time. And if it means making him happy in this life, our guy is going to work hard. Once again, he heads to school, still quite tired since the routine is boring. Along the way, he saw those same thugs. The blonde guy immediately got scared, and our protagonist wants to know why he's loitering so early. The blonde guy got a little upset about that, and Seok wants to know if he hasn't learned his lesson yet, having fun with the fact that he's a coward. It's even hard to believe he's a mobster. He should find a real job. It's time to live a decent life. Finally, he arrives at school, with the normal students and the thugs who'd been disciplined. Even arriving early, he wasn't the first. The weird girl is there too, and Seok is thinking of ways to help her, so he asked the guy in glasses to switch seats with her. That's going to make things much easier. Seok tries to analyze her coldly, looking at the girl from various angles. She's not ugly, and that can help her completely. The problem is those glasses, and it seems she really needs them. Quite curious, our guy took off her glasses, leaving the girl quite embarrassed. Only then did he realize she's actually very pretty. It remains to be seen if she can still see, and according to her, with great difficulty. Because of those glasses, her looks are hurt. Seok told her not to wear the glasses outside the classroom anymore, and the next day she should bring some money to school. Crying, she said yes, but our guy warned he's not going to rob her. The other students started paying attention to this, and Seok said for 1 week she'll have to obey him. This is going to change her life. The girl ended up agreeing. A little while later, Seok went to take a nap, and someone entered the classroom quite furious looking for him. One of those thugs who got beaten up is smiling. Our guy is still sleeping and woke up upset, wanting to know who came to bother him. This extra challenged our guy to a fight, except our protagonist doesn't even know who this poor guy is. According to him, he's come to collect on what happened to those thugs. Seok asked if that's true, and one of the jerks confirmed it. Disappointed, our protagonist realized he'll have to hit more people, and he can't remember that citizen at all. Ignoring the extra, Seok said he'll be merciful, letting him leave without any problems. But that's not what happened. Completely distracted, he ended up taking a punch to the face, leaving everyone quite scared. The thug said that student is a professional boxer, and now it's time for the protagonist to suffer. Seok tries to live a proper life, but people make it very difficult. Now that he's been hit, he can retaliate calmly and ask the extra to try again. News of the fight spreads through the hallways, and that girl who seems to be a thug found out about it. The professional boxer resumed his attack, believing in his technical superiority. Seok realizes he's really quite strong, and that's going to last at most 2 minutes, but his opponent doesn't plan on leaving an opening. Finally, the punches stopped. It's time for our guy to attack. That was planned by the boxer. Waiting for the punch, he felt enormous pain. Seok kicked the guy's leg with all his strength. He's really quite clever. The boxer calls him a coward. Our guy remembered this isn't a ring. Even more furious, the boxer decided to retaliate, landing a direct hit. But our protagonist managed to block it easily, since he's already tired. Time to crush that extra. With a single blow, he went down. Now it's time for real discipline. Seok gave him several slaps across the face, having a lot of fun with it. The students watching are impressed, until the boxer finally gives up. Except our protagonist knows he's not friends with those thugs. He's never seen this citizen at school. He's certainly one of Yonggi's subordinates. After being beaten, the boxer is close to spilling the truth, and our protagonist isn't feeling very patient. Before something more intense happens, the weird girl asked him to stop, which ended up happening. Seok went to wash his face in the bathroom and asked the weird girl to tell the teacher about that. Our guy started thinking while washing his hands. Back when he was an unrestrained delinquent, everyone looked at him with great admiration. That only fed his own madness. He thought that was the only way to be accepted, but that was one of his mistakes. Those eyes weren't of acceptance, but fear of what he might do. Seok still has a long road ahead, and he doesn't know what to do about those young delinquents. It's time to resolve the Yonggi situation soon, before it gets worse. Heading back to the classroom, he didn't see the teacher coming from the other hallway. The two of them ended up colliding. Seok almost complained about what happened until he realized he'd bumped into his teacher. That's when our protagonist realized puberty brings all sorts of interesting things. Still on the ground, the teacher saw it's our protagonist, getting shy for having shown him a part of her anatomy that should have been covered. Seok tries to ignore that, helping the teacher with her papers, and all of that was prepared for him so he could learn English the right way. She seems very excited about these lessons. They're going to start with the basics, and if he has any questions, he can just ask. Seok is impressed since she really put effort into that, so he's not going to focus on the thugs right now. It's time to study a bit more. While studying, he cleared up some doubts with the guy in glasses who was quite helpful. It seems they're having history class now. The teacher is talking about an artifact their nation lost to Japan. Seok ended up getting quite upset about that, and every time he acts that way, he looks like a mobster. For studying so much that day, his head ended up frying. The next class is music, and the guy in glasses remembered they need to change classrooms. Since he's being helped by him, Seok thought about making him a friend, but our guy doesn't have the social skills to approach someone in a friendly way. Finally, he decided to ask the extra's name, which is Young. In music class, they can sit wherever they want. Our guy thought about taking another nap, but that's when he heard a small argument. Some girls are bothering Sim Jae, telling her to sit far away. The girl ended up isolated, but our protagonist sat beside her. He asked if she felt uncomfortable with that, and she said it's fine. Seok is disappointed since he didn't want to sit in front. Those jealous girls start muttering something, and later, they spilled juice all over the girl's desk. Time for revenge. Seok got furious, but he ended up being stopped by Sim Jae. This isn't the first time this has happened, which only makes our protagonist even more furious. But he's not going to get involved. He told the weird girl to do as she likes. Having no other option, she cleaned the desk while being watched by our protagonist. Jung told our guy that when he's near her, the weird girl seems happier. Seok said if the noisy guy is that worried, he should go help her too. And really, this situation left him quite thoughtful. Class finally ended, and the students are heading home. Seok asked if the weird girl likes running from her problems and acting that way. She apologized, and our guy asked if that's all she knows how to do. Seok remembered she'd asked him to stop hitting that jerk earlier, and she said violence is bad. Maybe she's right, but when she's the victim, she can't just stand still. She always does that, never fighting back. That's why she keeps having problems. She keeps getting bullied only because it's easy to do that. The girl seems to agree with those words. She's afraid to react and make things even worse. Our protagonist hadn't thought about that. What she really wanted was to be ignored and live her life. Seok watches, thoughtful, and asked if that's really what she wants. Grabbing her by the arm, he asked her to come along. This isn't the time to feel sorry for herself. In no time, she ended up quite surprised. It's an arcade, a place where people have fun. Seok went straight to the punching machine, getting the highest score, which left the other students impressed. Time for her to try too, but the weird girl got nervous. Seok doesn't have the patience for her drama and told her to try, but she doesn't even know how to throw a proper punch. Our guy had to teach her the basics, like getting into the right stance. The most important part is the hip rotation, but they're so close the girl got nervous. Time for her to throw a punch. She should think of someone she'd like to hit. Even scared, she did as instructed. The sound the machine made was louder than she expected. Seok wants to know if she feels more relieved after that, and indeed that's what happened. Our guy throws a few punches whenever he wants to feel better. Then, he asked if the girl is really an idiot. He doesn't believe she wants to keep living a life where she keeps being a victim. It's time to change that situation. He decided to change too, so he proposed a promise to her. He'd help her, but she needs to help herself. The girl seems more encouraged now. They made that interesting promise. Seok wants to know who she imagined punching on that machine, but the girl got embarrassed. They're being watched by a thug, that powder sniffer. Sim Jae can't stop thinking about the promise they made and ended up being surprised by someone's arrival. Yang Gi went to her to ask some questions. She doesn't know who he is, and the guy said he came to help her, claiming to know that Seok is someone who keeps bothering her since everyone knows he's a huge jerk. Once again, that extra who got beaten up appeared. He's a worm. Yang Gi said he could end this, telling her to say something to the teachers, blaming our protagonist. They could help her by being witnesses. That would get our guy expelled, given that he's already on the principal's radar for being a troublemaker. Sim Jae said our protagonist isn't that person anymore. He's changed a lot. Yang Gi tries to say she's very naive, claiming our guy is doing this out of self-interest to avoid getting expelled. He believes he's managing to convince her, but the girl doesn't want to betray him, since our protagonist was the first person who decided to help her. That just made the thug even more furious. He immediately grabbed her clothes, ordering her to do as he said since he's out of patience. Not to mention Seok can't protect her forever. He's already taken care of our protagonist, who'll be beaten up soon. That left the weird girl quite worried. That's when our protagonist decided to show up. He's really hurt, but above all, he's very furious. Yang Gi can't even believe what he's seeing. Our protagonist just became an animal full of hatred. The jerks tried to finish him off, but they're too weak for that. Seok was attacked for no reason and got furious. One of the thugs started mocking our guy, asking if he thinks he's clever, said it's all over already since the girl is alone. Seok immediately understood that message, but he didn't want to believe they'd do something to the weird girl. It's time to go protect her immediately. More thugs are arriving. Having no other options, our guy decided to use violence once more. In no time, he took them all down, but the thugs are numerous. Someone hit him in the back. That just left our guy furious. The others are already afraid to keep fighting. Siak is very exhausted, and there's a large number of enemies ahead of him who are about to experience real pain. He ended up leaving them all on the ground, finally arriving at the classroom, finding that jerk bothering his protege. Young-gi nearly wet himself when he saw that, because our protagonist is filled with rage. The extras are ready to hold him back, but they ended up being obliterated with ease. Time for the leader of the thugs to join in too. He managed to throw our protagonist to the ground, leaving Simjae quite scared. Our protagonist didn't like that one bit. The thug took the opportunity to stomp on his head, claiming he runs that entire school. Unexpectedly, Simjae threw herself in that jerk's direction so he wouldn't hit our protagonist. Because of that, she ended up getting slapped in the face, which awakened our guy's hidden power, who's now ready to knock out some teeth. The thug had no chance at all. A single punch made him do a flip in the air. His subordinates weren't expecting such a brutal defeat. Simjae started apologizing, since all of this happened because of her, but our protagonist asked everyone to pay attention now. If anyone tries to bother the girl, they'll deeply regret it. That goes for everyone. The speech was interrupted by the principal's arrival, who found our protagonist caught up in trouble once again. It's time for him to be expelled for real. Our protagonist started hearing all kinds of accusations. Yang-gi is also going to be held responsible, but he's happy since he believes our guy will be expelled. Even having been beaten, he considers that a victory. Siak is quite furious. He should have been more careful. Now he's worried about what might happen to the weird girl. If he really gets expelled, he's going to beat up that thug one last time. Right there, right now. Yang-gi started shaking with fear, but someone stopped that from happening. The weird girl is going to step up. She has something to tell the principal. If our protagonist gets expelled, she's leaving the school too. No one understood those words. She said she was being protected, but the principal is still furious, since he doesn't understand what this situation is about. Until the English teacher decided to show up, claiming they should investigate that situation. Maybe our guy really was trying to help. Now they're all talking, while the mobster gets even more upset. As punishment for the fight, our protagonist had to clean the bathroom. Simjae felt quite guilty about that punishment. She doesn't want to leave yet. Our guy said if she feels guilty, she should help clean the bathroom too, but he wants to know why she decided to step up. Seok found out she was being blackmailed because of the things he did in the past, but the girl said they have a promise now. Our protagonist felt very happy about that, which almost made him forget something. He'd asked her to bring money. Later at school, she was quite surprised as they went to the commercial part of the city. Some women are dressed there in an interesting way, and Simjae is quite embarrassed being in that place. Finally understanding why he'd asked her to bring money, our protagonist hopes it's nothing weird, since they have a mission there. Someone saw those kids in uniform, who weren't supposed to be in this area. Siak entered a beauty salon with his friend and asked them to take care of her and make her look really pretty. Simjae still has no idea what's happening. They started by cutting her hair. It's the first time she's ever been in a place like this. Our protagonist is just waiting. The women won't stop talking, which made our guy ask the hairdresser to focus on the work. The other woman there wants to know if they're dating. Looking at him more closely, she seems to have noticed something. She believes our guy is mature because he already became a father as a teenager, acknowledging that he's good looking. She even suggested she could take very good care of him if he wanted, just swap out that weird girl. Our protagonist mocked that. The weirder girl, just look at her. For the love of God, what a stretch. After the haircut, she looked horrendous. There's no way this turned out better. Well, at least her face is showing now. Seok said they just need to fix the details. Now it looks much better. The hairdresser also praised her a lot, saying the girl is pretty, which left the other woman disappointed. It's the first time a good student walked into that salon accompanied by a thug. They even look like a real couple. On the way back, Seok told the weird girl to wear her uniform more casually. That's when that mysterious man bumped into him and said that's not an area for kids. Our protagonist wants to know who this man is. Looking at his face, he recognized Yang Sung. The weird girl noticed that, and when she asked questions, it made our guy change the subject. Unfortunately, he was our guy's first victim in his past life. Later that day, our guy couldn't stop thinking about him. He belongs to a rival criminal organization. That's why he had to be eliminated. If he ran into him this early in that place, he must already be in an influential position. All of this leaves our guy quite thoughtful. Maybe it's the work of that entity with the wings. But he decided to ignore that situation since he's not going to see him again. It was his old man who noticed our guy talking to himself and told him to go to sleep already. In the middle of the night, Seok woke up to use the bathroom. Along the way, he found someone in the kitchen, thought it was his father, but that man is a complete stranger. What he saw was Sung, completely transformed. He'd come there to torment our protagonist, taking on a dark, quite terrifying form. It was all just an intense nightmare. As our guy wakes up, the phone decided to ring. It's the teacher calling him, quite worried since he didn't show up for class. Only then did our guy realize he'd woken up late. Now our guy runs desperately. He can't miss class. His arrival left some students surprised that our guy really managed to arrive. He just doesn't understand why everyone is surprised. Some jerks are there to apologize. They were forced to do that the day before, which leaves our protagonist even more furious. All of that was Yonggi the thug's fault. At least after defeating him, he became the school's top dog, which makes it easier to discipline the worms. Those two will be watched closely from now on. He wants to know where the weird girl is now, who, at the moment, is being cheered on by other girls. Some are quite impressed by her new look, and even so, the girl still doesn't have the confidence she needs. That's when someone said our guy should show up in the principal's office. Arriving there, he found the English teacher, and she said the principal had to step out. She also asked if something happened since he doesn't usually run late. Seok said he overslept, and after hearing that, the teacher told him to go back to class, since she'll talk to the principal in his place. Our protagonist felt very happy. His good deeds are starting to pay off. Since he came in a rush, he ended up forgetting to bring lunch, and someone came to ask if he's not going to eat anything. The one who said that was the weird girl, who'd like to share her lunch with him. At first, our protagonist refused, but he changed his mind immediately upon seeing her lunchbox. He's not in a position to refuse something so delicious. That's when a jealous girl asked if he'd bribed her that easily. She noticed the change in our protagonist's behavior. It's that dark-haired girl, accompanied by her lackeys. She took the opportunity to congratulate our guy for defeating Yonggi. Our guy doesn't know what's up with her. She's being friendly toward him, but they're not close. What made the situation even more awkward was the fact that our guy didn't remember her name. That just made things more complicated, since the mobster ended up feeling upset. Either way, our guy doesn't want to get involved with delinquents and decided to completely ignore her. Those words left the mobster girl outraged. So she started talking about the weird girl's mother. She was a shaman, and after channeling a spirit, disappeared. That comment made Sim-Jae cry a lot, quite saddened. Our protagonist remembered the day they admired the horizon. While the mobster girl keeps talking, he got closer to her, slapping her face with a single hit. That, obviously, left the mobster girl quite furious. Our guy said she's despicable. Completely outraged, she tried to hit him back, but she doesn't have the strength needed to do that. She said she's the daughter of a mobster too. Something our girl already knows. He belongs to the Tiger Gang. Using her own father's influence, the girl told him to kneel down, and our protagonist mocked her. He's not afraid of mobsters. So, he had to take the opportunity to make an announcement. That citizen is an outcast. Whoever walks with her will suffer, and whoever doubts that can just put it to the test. The mobster girl couldn't even believe that. After that, he needed to talk to Sim-Jae, who doesn't agree with that attitude, which made our protagonist ask if she's an idiot, since he knows that citizen used to bully the girl too. Trying to explain the situation, Sim-Jae said it wasn't always like that, but our guy claims she's just a delinquent. However, she shouldn't worry about that, since he's going to handle the situation. That made the weird girl start laughing, saying our protagonist talks like an old man. She's also worried about that girl's father, who's a real mobster, while our protagonist is only worried about the next class. Sim-Jae started crying, since she also remembered she's the daughter of a shaman. Our guy has no idea what that means. He doesn't care about that part, and it's much better to be a shaman's daughter than a mobster's. Sim-Jae revealed she's afraid of being possessed by a spirit, which leaves her quite terrified. But our protagonist reinforced his promise. He's going to protect her, leaving the weird girl quite calm again. Now it's time to go back to class. Before that, the girl has one more favor to ask. For some bizarre reason, the mobster girl went to talk to our protagonist and demanded he apologize, which our protagonist found amusing. She said she's going to have her father resolve this situation. They can invade the school if necessary, and there's nothing our guy can do about it. Full of rage, our protagonist told her to try. Now that she's completely terrified, she realized she's facing a lunatic, and our protagonist isn't afraid of those mobsters, claiming her father is no different from a mobster who got kicked out. The girl is now completely shocked. Her father has been at the lowest rank for 20 years, has gambling debts, and is an alcoholic. That's a detail not everyone knew about, and Seok is ready to reveal that to the whole class. That's when the girl asked why our protagonist is acting like a jerk, and if he's dating that weird girl now, and if he's doing all this at her request. Seok said she wouldn't believe what the weird girl had asked for, because she wanted the girl to be forgiven. Our protagonist doesn't agree with that idea, calling it very stupid. Sim-Jae believes that other girl is also a victim of life, revealing that they used to attend the same school, and that girl used to be very radiant until one day she became much darker and a huge jerk. That's why she'd like to forgive her. Seok can't even believe the weird girl wants to forgive someone like that. If it were up to him, he'd solve everything with violence, claiming that Citizen needs a very harsh lesson. This mobster's hands are rated E for everybody. Women, elders, or children for everyone. It's time to slap her. At that, the mobster girl saw the figure of her own father. Panicking, she asked not to be beaten while calling our guy Dad, which made our protagonist reflect deeply, realizing that Citizen gets beaten in her own home. In the classroom, the students are quite surprised. Our protagonist is there, quite thoughtful, which already stirs up several rumors. Seok asked them to stop gossiping. Because of what happened to that mobster girl, our guy is reflective. He realized she's also a victim of life. According to the guy in glasses, Yoon, who's the mobster girl, had to go to the infirmary. Our guy joined the conversation and said she might be making up excuses. Only then did Simjae reveal she's always had health problems, and when she was younger, she used to miss a lot of school since she has anemia. Our protagonist has trouble believing that story. Meanwhile, Simjae said it must be very sad to scare someone who's sick. Seok made it clear he's not to blame for what happened, and whether she lives or dies, he doesn't care. But the truth is, he's quite confused about this. He's more upset about the situation than Simjae, who's the victim. In his past life, she once begged for his help, and our guy wants to believe he's not to blame for that. The entity appeared behind him and asked how far our guy's regret really goes. That sent a chill down his spine, leaving our guy startled. His friends have no idea what happened, but Seok isn't going crazy. He's heard that voice before. Now he's certain the entity is watching everything he does, so he told it to get lost, since some people need pain to learn lessons. That's why he won't care about what happened to that girl. At least, that's what he said out loud. That same day, he went to an address, that girl's house, which isn't bad at all. The door was opened abruptly. A very drunk man appeared on the other side, asking who the boy is. Our protagonist would like to know if Yoon lives in that place. The drunk told him to get lost, since the house belongs to Dong-seok. Since that's her father's name, our guy arrived at the right place. Our protagonist went to take a peek inside, finding the girl covered in bruises on her legs. She wasn't expecting the visit and told him to leave immediately. Seok said he didn't go there of his own free will, but he was shocked by what his eyes saw. That girl doesn't look well at all, and this situation is much more serious than he'd imagined. Her body is covered in bruises. The drunk came back home, furious at our protagonist's presence, and started threatening him. Thank God our protagonist landed a punch on him. That made the drunk try to retaliate, only to get beaten even more brutally. A scumbag like him doesn't have the right to call himself a father. Seok turned his attention back to the girl in agony. He needs to take her to a hospital urgently. That's when a mysterious man showed up. It's that same guy from our guy's nightmare, Seung. Things just changed drastically. The drunk is knocked out and now another mobster has shown up. This isn't the situation our guy was expecting. The mobster wants to know why he's taking the girl and if he knows who that drunk lying on the floor is. Our guy said he's just a failure who doesn't know how to take care of things. That comment left Seung furious, but he saw the girl's condition. Because of that, he ignored the whole situation, telling our guy to get to the hospital quickly. They'd settle their personal disputes later. Seok did as suggested. What he doesn't know is that Seung was impressed by what he'd done. Already at the hospital, the girl received first aid. Soon, everything will be fine. Her condition leaves her immune system shaken, so she needs to be careful. Our guy started remembering the past, back when they managed to take down the Tiger Gang. Much of that happened because of him. In the middle of the celebration, someone approached. It's the girl Yoon, who tries to get close to him. Our protagonist doesn't even remember they went to the same school. She ended up working in the paid companionship sector to pay off her father's debt. Desperate, she went to our guy to ask to be freed, but he'd never do that, helping someone like her. Not to mention, he doesn't remember her from school. He even told the manager to be very strict with her and make her work every day. That left her completely devastated. After that, our guy never heard from her again, but he was sure her life turned out miserable. If he'd stayed on the same path, that girl would have ended up suffering. The nurse asked how they were going to pay for that, until someone said the matter had already been resolved. Seung took care of it before our protagonist could even worry. As for the alcoholic, he's fine. Unfortunately, since they're from the same gang, Seung needs to handle things like that. Seok never imagined Seung was the kind of mobster who takes care of his subordinates. While fixing his watch, Seung asked our guy's name, only to hit him with a slap, intending to teach him a lesson. Our protagonist asked if that's all. His lack of fear left Seung even more impressed, claiming the boy is very interesting, and that he liked him. Leaving the hospital, he asked him to take care of Yoon, since she's in a delicate situation. If they met again, he'd like to talk to him. Our protagonist was called by name, and that only happened because it's written on his school uniform. He never imagined Seung would be such a good person, even being a mobster. While heading back to school, he realized he's quite confused about this life. He wanted to live normally and not do wrong things. But there are a lot of people who depend on him, especially those who suffered because of his actions. Maybe that's what the angel wants for him. And honestly, our guy just wanted a cigarette. Reaching into his pocket, he put a lollipop in his mouth instead. After all, he still wants to improve, but he made it clear he's going to live life his own way, and if he could, he'd like to punch that angel, claiming he's going to live virtuously, but in his own way. While our guy talks to himself, the angel seems to have materialized, willing to watch him even more closely. The next day, our guy got ready early and ran into his father. The old man has various body aches. His shoulder seems hurt. He might have to rest that day. Seok asked if he should drop out of school and start working too, but the old man made it clear that shouldn't be done. It's too early to be talking nonsense. The boy isn't stupid or dumb, he just doesn't try. He also asked if our protagonist has been hitting anyone, and he said no. All of that's in the past now. Since he's running late, he needs to go quickly, and the old man told him not to cause trouble. Seok's having really tough days, trying to keep his life on the right track. On the way, he started thinking about Yoon and whether she's doing better. She must surely admire him like a hero. When he arrived at school, our guy saw something depressing. Yoon sat at her desk and started falling asleep. Our protagonist asked if the delinquent is listening, but she told him to get lost. She didn't want him to get any more involved in her life, since he'd only cause problems. Seok can't understand that, but decided to follow the advice, since she's just a delinquent. She looks at him with a lot of hatred. Her life at school is over. Her reputation is destroyed. She's still in that pathetic state, and he'll certainly use that weakness against her. At least her friends seem worried. Whether she's screwed or not, that doesn't matter. That's why they called her to go outside, without knowing they're being watched by someone. Now they're on the rooftop. Yoon started thinking about possible revenge, and her friends seem to have thought of something. They closed the door that leads to the rooftop and started hitting Yoon. Another delinquent from that school is responsible for this. They're the jerks from the other class. Yoon wants to know what they're doing to her since her father is a mobster. However, after what happened, those threats don't work anymore. She finally realized she's completely defenseless, and now they're planning to take advantage of her. Yoon tried to ask her old friends for help, only to discover she'd been completely discarded. She's useless now, and that's why she needs to pay the price. Yoon carries many family traumas which are now part of her school life too. What the thugs didn't expect is that they wouldn't be there alone. Someone managed to force their way onto the rooftop, and he's not going to let anything happen. Everyone got quite scared. Seok arrived at that place, filled with rage. Locking the rooftop door wasn't an interesting decision. While everyone's scared to death, Yoon is certainly falling in love. One of the jerks asked what our guy is doing, since he'd told them himself to ignore her. Seok grabbed him by the neck, asking him to repeat those words, claiming he's facing a worm who only likes attacking the weak. Just because she's isolated doesn't mean they can do whatever they want with her, and it'd be good for that to spread throughout the school. They're dismissed now. Yoon asked why our protagonist is doing this, as it seems like he wants to turn her into a joke. Our guy said he doesn't care what happens to her, and he only went there because the weird girl had asked. Yoon definitely wasn't expecting that help, since she'd always treated that girl with contempt. Seok made it clear that not everyone in the world is despicable like her. Even when she was a delinquent, Sim-jae always worried about her. The weird girl started remembering when they were kids, hoping they could be friends again. Yoon ended up quite moved, since she wasn't expecting to be helped this way. Seok can't understand this whole outpouring of affection, but he's still thinking about the people affected by his actions, wishing his life could be a little more peaceful. A few days after all these events, a poor soul was being beaten up by mobsters. He begs for forgiveness, but the leader of those thugs doesn't agree with that. This is the leader of the Sampo gang, and he said this man wasn't able to keep his business in order. The victim claims he's going to pay his debt, and the leader seems to agree with him. It's going to be paid. That's why he ordered them to put concrete on his feet and make his body disappear, since he's now become completely useless. This is the hardest part of the job. Alongside him is one of that place's leaders, Hwan, a mobster who'd like to have the most useful people serving at his side. That's when he received a photo of our protagonist. But to him, that's just a kid. Even so, his reputation is spreading. It'd be quite interesting to recruit him, except the gang leader doesn't agree with that. Accepting a young man like that is absurd, since he has no experience. That's when someone said Shung, from the rival gang, is already keeping an eye on him. The two of them were seen together a few days ago. That made the mob leader take it a bit more seriously, thinking that young man could become the next leader of the rival gang. Increasingly interested in him, he told them to arrange that meeting as soon as possible. Back at school, everyone greets our guy. It's been 2 weeks since he became the strongest, and the whole place became more peaceful, since he banned any kind of nonsense there. Not everyone agreed with that, but they ended up being harshly disciplined. The truth is, life got better for everyone. Sim-jae is now a much happier girl, while Yoon went back to being a normal girl, a bit more shy. Even the teacher became more radiant too. Yonggi never showed up at school again after that beating. There's only one thing that still needs to be resolved. One of the students is treating our guy like his leader. It's that boxer who's now quite friendly after the beating. Our guy still remembers that very well and asks that extra to act normally. There's no room for delinquents there. But that's the real reason he wants to be a subordinate. That became clear after they fought. Our protagonist is bringing order to that place, so the boxer was deeply moved by that. Seok just thinks all of this is a lot of nonsense. But that's not going to stop that extra from being his vassal. When class ended, the girls invited our guy to dinner. Seok declined since he's going to do that with his father, and that vassal would like to carry his backpack on the way home, which leaves our protagonist a little annoyed. Along the way, some strange men seem to be waiting. The boxer doesn't know who they are and got intimidated. That's when someone started calling out to our protagonist. It's that blonde delinquent. For the love of God, he's still after revenge. Our protagonist has no intention of backing down. Before he could do anything, someone hit the delinquent. One of those mobsters did that. They're not there to obey the blonde guy. They just want to know who our protagonist is. Seok has no idea what's happening. That's when one of the mobsters asked to be accompanied. The boxer is quite scared, and our guy did nothing wrong. He might be in serious trouble. But the priority now is staying calm. Beside him, the boxer is already frozen. There's no other option for our protagonist except violence. The mobster is already prepared for that, but he was caught off guard when Seok threw several coins at him. That made the mobster close his eyes immediately. The blonde mobster got worried about that, and distracted, took a nice kick to the face. Finally, our protagonist can flee. Except all of this left the mobsters even more furious. The boxer ended up captured, and if our guy doesn't come with him, the extra will suffer. Seok started getting quite worried about the situation. Either he comes quietly or things will get serious. Completely desperate, the boxer told our guy to run, and that's why he was harshly punished with a punch. They started taunting Seok, asking if he's going to abandon a friend. Without thinking twice, our guy started running like an Olympic champion. That makes the mobster's job even harder, so they need to make the boxer suffer a bit more, since it was his fault they couldn't get our guy. Before getting hit, the boxer asked why they're doing this, and the mobster claimed he'd interfered with the Sampo gang's plans. It's time to pay for what he did, while our protagonist flees. The mobster is ready to carry out his punishment, not noticing our protagonist is approaching at great speed, landing a flying knee right in his ribs. Thanks to that, he managed to save that extra's life. Seok told him to run and call the police quickly. The other mobsters were surprised. They need to capture this young man. Completely full of fear, the boxer said they should flee together, since this gang is dangerous, and our protagonist gave him a headbutt. Since these extras are nothing compared to him, Seok started making it rain kicks from the sky, telling his vassal to flee once again. The boy is quite apprehensive about that decision, but accepted it'd be better to call the police. Now our protagonist can be worry-free. Completely motivated, the vassal doesn't want to let his feudal lord down. Unfortunately, his path was blocked by someone else, and by the smile, he seems to be associated with those mobsters. It's Juan. Our guy continues the beatdown session, finally achieving victory. There's not a single mobster left standing. Juan brought the vassal back and said our protagonist isn't an ordinary student. That's why they're interested in him. After seeing his vassal unconscious, Seok charged in to attack. Except Juan seems much faster than him, landing a surprise elbow strike. Recognizing that our guy is strong and determined and nothing more, it's very easy to predict his movements. Hitting our guy in the back of the neck, Seok is being completely overwhelmed, and he doesn't know how a monster like that came to be. Juan said without technique, "That's just a strength contest between delinquents." By the way he speaks, our guy finally knew who he's talking to. That's the strongest man in the underworld, and his instructor in his past life. He still remembers when he met him. Our guy was in the middle of an intense brawl. Everyone was desperate, and the only one acting calmly was Juan. In fact, they were terrified of him, who mastered violence with mastery. Even when they tried to surprise him, they were completely caught off guard themselves. No one wanted the task of defeating him, at least not trying to do it alone. Juan said those worms are nothing to him. Seok watched everything with great admiration, since he defeated over 10 men alone. That's why he decided to learn from him. At first, he was a pretty pathetic student. He used to attack without thinking, even if the enemy was stronger. Seok didn't want to attack anyone from behind, since that goes against his principles, until his master told him he didn't understand the basics. After stepping on his chest, he claimed he's a mobster. There's no justice in these fights. The only priority is winning, since that's the only way to survive. Once again, he's under that same foot. Seok never imagined he'd already have a leadership position in the gang so soon. This is the worst possible situation, since there's no way to beat him now. Our guy said he'd go with him, but grabbed a bit of dirt from the ground, and throwing it in Juan's eyes, he claimed methods don't matter, only victory. The move was super effective. Our protagonist managed to create distance, and now he's going to attack since his enemy can't see. However, that didn't work out. Juan, even blocking the punch, still praised that strategy, making it clear it doesn't work on everyone. Seok is about to have his head crushed. Elsewhere, the girls continue walking around, and Sim-jae had a strange feeling. She got anxious, for no apparent reason. She just hopes nothing happened to our protagonist. Waking up slowly, they're asking if he really defeated 4 mobsters alone. Finally, our guy woke up. He's facing the mob leader in Hwan's company. They had to teach him a lesson since the boy was disobedient. Seok has his hands tied and doesn't know where he is. The gang leader said it's a pleasure to meet him, since he's heard a lot of rumors about our guy, and our guy remembers this person very well. His name is Bong, and he's the boss. In other words, he's at their headquarters. That could end up being a bit problematic. Bong asked if our guy thinks he can survive in that world, which left our protagonist furious. He stood up furiously from the chair and hit that mobster's face. At least, that's what he'd do if his hands weren't tied. It remains to be seen why our guy became famous. Obviously, the beatdowns at school contributed to that. Trying to be a good person is proving very difficult. There must certainly be something wrong, Hwan thought, since that boy shows no fear at all, even being surrounded by mobsters. But what really left him thoughtful was that phrase about methods not mattering, only victory. That made him believe our guy isn't normal. Seok started laughing a lot in front of them. Bong asked what's so funny since he wants to smile too. Our guy said the mob leader got scared of a school kid and had to tie him up and bring him to his hideout. Hwan offered to discipline our protagonist once more, except the mob leader seems to have liked that. He grabbed our guy by the hair and asked if he likes provoking others. Seok said he can answer that question after being untied, unless of course they're scared. To everyone's surprise, the old man agreed to that. Hwan made it clear that could be dangerous, but the old man is already stubborn about it. He doesn't want to hear opinions. Seok always knew his mentor is smart, but it's hard to question the leader. The priority is escaping that place, and he's going to try to use the old man as a hostage. The problem will be the retaliation. That will certainly be dangerous. Determined to worry about that later, our guy is going to focus on escaping. Until they were interrupted by someone, henchmen are bringing news. They've been invaded by the Tiger Gang. The poor extra ends up being pushed far away. Shung went there with some of his subordinates, ready to deliver some joy and fun. It seems he and Hwan are declared enemies. Our protagonist has no idea what brought Shung to that place, and the old man asked if he really wants to start a war. Shung said the old man is the one who wants that, since they kidnapped a mere kid. All the mobsters are ready for violence. Hwan is also very worried about all this, but the old man told them to release the boy. Even Seung was surprised by that. The old man knows they went there because of our protagonist, and he's not going to stop that. It seems this mission was easier than expected. Seok is already untied, but before leaving, the old man said they'd meet again in the future. Our protagonist didn't feel intimidated. While they leave, the old man started plotting. Seung personally went to rescue that boy, so he's going to get our protagonist no matter what it costs. Hwan's intuition is also speaking loudly. He wants to know more about our guy. On the street, Seok asked how they managed to find him, but they just said to follow them. Our guy is quite irritated and wants answers now, which made one of the mobsters shove him against the wall. They went through a lot of trouble to rescue him, but our protagonist doesn't see things that way until someone told them to stop. Shung said he'd explain everything, but asked his subordinate not to lose his temper. He immediately apologized. These gangs are rivals. They've been fighting over the underworld for many years. They found out about some movement from Sampo, and Seung went to investigate. That's when he found a big-faced kid. Our protagonist realized they're talking about his vassal. They sent him to the hospital but said he's fine. Even quite injured, he was still saying to take care of the protagonist. Seok was moved by his followers' determination. Seung invited our guy to come with them, except he refused the offer. He doesn't want to get close to any gang. He also doesn't want them to be friendly, preferring to stay invisible to them. Even though his subordinates are outraged, Seung understood the boy. The truth is, our protagonist is in serious trouble besides becoming a target. He got quite hurt. The old man's threat also left our guy quite frustrated. Our guy's father finally arrived home. He found it strange that he wasn't there, and his shoulder hurts a lot. Hearing strange noises, he thought it might be a burglar. He immediately tried to surprise him, but ended up finding our guy going through some things. The old man asked what mess that is. Seok said they should pack everything and leave the city. The old man tried to understand that, but as he got closer to his son, he saw several bruises on his face. Feeling powerless, he asked what happened, but our guy didn't say anything. To make it worse, the old man still didn't understand why they should flee. Seok said that doesn't matter right now. They need to flee from Sampo. Our guy can't find another solution, and his father realized he's distraught. There's only one solution for this. He decided to hit him with a pan on the head. Our guy got upset, and the old man said he's raising his son. It's time for him to sleep a little. The next day, our guy woke up quite agitated. His head still hurts a lot, and beside him is a note. It's from his father telling him to rest a bit. He'd already contacted the school and also made food. Seok believes his father has no idea how serious the problem is. They have no money and nowhere to go. Staying in that place could be quite dangerous. Outside, someone started knocking on the door. They want to talk to our protagonist. Seok is quite agitated, thinking it's an enemy, and got ready for combat since he's not going to be captured again. Outside, the person thinks they went to the wrong address. They thought of looking for the key in a flower pot, and luckily they found it, which left our protagonist startled. When the door opened, he was already ready to land a hit. He thought it was a delinquent, and our guy is still quite aggressive, but the person outside is asking for patience, showing him some kind of document. This is Detective Young, and he'd like our guy to come with him to the station. Our guy wasn't the only one scared by that. Yoon was nearby and saw that unexpected visitor. It seems she'd come to bring some gifts for our guy. In no time, our girl arrived at the police station. She saw some people locked up there, and the investigator asked why he's so upset. Little does he know our guy used to be a big mobster. Our guy's father told him everything, that he'd been having trouble with Sampo. Our guy didn't like that help, since he'll have to worry about the police now. However, he was impressed that his father believed him. Time to tell what happened. But the place seems quite busy. Someone else who's in there too saw our guy, and seems to have focused on him, hitting him with a punch, on purpose. This mobster wants to know what our guy is doing there, imagining that Seok is there because of legal trouble. Before he could leave, our guy asked him to wait, charging at him, landing a punch on his nose in the middle of the police station. The thug wasn't expecting something like that, and our guy asked him to repeat those words. Fallen on the ground, the worm said they're in a police station, but that's not important to our protagonist. Before the assault could continue, the investigator asked our guy to control himself. Only then did Seok realize he was overdoing it. Since the cops like beating up delinquents, all it took was propping the thug up, and he ended up getting beaten by the police. After that whole stressful ordeal, they went to talk on the rooftop. Seok is still quite stressed about what happened. He doesn't have time to waste. That's why he said he's leaving, claiming his father just exaggerated in his report, and that he'd fought against some thugs. Seok doesn't trust the police and doesn't see them as capable of solving his problems. The investigator said Jun-soo gave a different version. Our protagonist immediately stopped in his tracks. For those who don't know, that's our guy's vassal, who's in the hospital now. Seok realized this investigator must know the truth, and now he wants to have a very frank conversation about what really happened. Back at the station, our guy needs to tell the truth, but he refuses to cooperate. To the investigator, he's just an average delinquent, but this is strange. It's not normal for a young man to do what he did, hitting someone in the middle of a police station. He might be the successor of one of those gangs. Seok was caught off guard when asked if he's being threatened by Sampo. Our guy stood up and said that's complete nonsense. The investigator said he can only help if he's honest, but our guy ignores that. Once again, he thinks the cop is useless. At that moment, everything froze, and the angel asked if the boy is going to run. For a moment, he didn't understand that, thinking it was the police officer, and asked what that man knows about him. Only then did he realize it was the entity. She said she's disappointed in our guy, whose vow to fix his own mistakes can't be kept. Seok said he's trying, but that old life keeps closing in on him. The entity said he's mistaken, asking if he really acted ethically his entire life, which made our guy reflect a lot. He's good at fighting, at yelling and cursing, but he's really trying hard not to be a gang member and ruin other people's lives. Now, those Sampo bastards are making everything difficult. The entity smiled at that and said she understands the boy, claiming she has no right to tell him what to do. Even so, she has one piece of advice to share. He shouldn't reject people who can help him, like that officer. Seok believes he's being used, and the entity claimed this isn't the first time they've met. In the past, he risked his own life to help our guy. Seok immediately wanted to know that citizen's name. A flashback in the middle of the rain. Seok is worried about that officer, and our guy seems to be fleeing from someone who's asking him to stop this now. The wet ground made our guy lose his balance and fall. Even so, he has no intention of stopping his run, except his ankle is hurt. Finally, the mobster was captured. Seok doesn't want to surrender like that, which started a physical fight between the two of them. And this cop isn't going to make things easy, asking if our guy doesn't care about his late father's memory. He worried about the boy until his last day, and even after leaving prison, he didn't change his ways. Seok doesn't know how that man knew his father. Their conversation happens in the middle of the street, and an Isekai corp truck is passing by. Our guy hurt his leg, he can't move. The officer simply pushed him aside while the truck approaches. That was his last good deed in life. Seok can't believe that, but that officer really did sacrifice himself. Back in the present, the investigator asked if our guy is okay, since he went catatonic. Seok finally manages to remember everything, and what happened to that poor detective who, at this exact moment, wishes to help him if our guy wants that. Seok said he's going to tell everything he knows, and finally asked that man for help. A guard outside watches a young girl. He even asked if she needs help, but she said no. Yoon is quite apprehensive, trying to imagine what happened to our protagonist. Him of all people, who seemed to have changed his ways. His statement took a long time, and the investigator thanked him for his cooperation. Seok told everything he knew and why he's being chased. He just didn't mention the part about talking to a mysterious entity. That evidence isn't very solid, but it's enough to start an investigation. He asked if our guy is friends with Shung. He'd heard that mobster is the one who acts politely. Witness protection isn't a possibility at the moment, but the investigator is pleased with the cooperation since he thought Seok would never tell the truth. The only reason he did that is based on what happened in the past, and about that, our guy isn't going to say anything. Arriving outside, he heard someone call his name. Yoon stood there waiting for him, quite anguished. She said she saw our guy approaching the station. That's why she decided to follow him. Seok doesn't know how to explain all of that to her. That's when the investigator arrived, and helping our guy said he'd asked for his help. There's no misunderstanding at all, and told them to have a meal together since they're young. Our protagonist didn't understand, but the girl got quite embarrassed. The investigator noticed there's some food in that bag. That's why he made that suggestion. Far from there, they head back home. Seok asked what she was doing at his house. Yoon said she got worried. Since he'd missed school, he might be sick, and he'd helped her when it was needed. Our protagonist wonders if he's hallucinating. He almost found that delinquent cute. She found the address through Simjae, a sign that the two of them are getting closer as friends. Apologizing to her was something very noble. Even so, Yoon still feels very guilty for having been a jerk, and that's a feeling that eats her up inside. Seok remembered when the weird girl was being bullied, and other bad things that happened because of him. That made him realize he was forgetting something obvious. There are still many consequences of his past actions, and the angel said his soul also can't be saved. Maybe he was talking about that guilt. Seok told the girl that yeah, he really used to be a despicable person. Yoon replied that's quite obvious. He was the worst of the worst. Our guy doesn't disagree with that at all, which the girl finds strange. Finally, they reach their destination. Seok is going to go inside and said goodbye to his friend. Trying to gather courage, she asked him to wait a moment. He probably hasn't eaten anything yet, so she offered to eat with him. Our guy wasn't expecting that, but in no time she was already cooking inside his kitchen. Seok is just watching all of this, without understanding anything at all, admiring part of her anatomy, which anyone would admire. For all intents and purposes, that's not bad at all. Finally, the meal was ready. Yoon is very anxious for him to try it. The rice seems very well made. Our protagonist found that recipe a little curious, since those are ingredients for someone who's sick. Yoon wants to know what he thought of it. After tasting it, he said it's very delicious. The girl said that recipe is way too easy. Seok was a little confused, but now he's certain. Given all his experience with women in his past life, what's happening exactly right now is easy to understand. He doesn't understand why she's doing all of this. Maybe it's because of what he did to her father. After finishing his meal, the girl said she'd take care of the dishes, but ended up being stopped. Seok held her hand and said she's very pretty. The two of them looked at each other briefly. The girl closed her eyes for the kiss. Our guy started leaning in, but noticed she's quite shy. That made him freeze too, and he decided to flick her forehead instead. The two of them got very confused. Nobody knew what was going to happen. That's why our protagonist asked her to say what she was thinking. Completely outraged, she revealed she knows she's been acting strange. If he weren't making all those facial expressions, she wouldn't be thinking about him that way either. Now our guy got confused, and she talked about the conversation they'd had earlier. That made our guy laugh a lot. Who would have thought our protagonist made that woman worry about him? Still quite confused, she was surprised by a gentle touch from our guy. Not only that, he's feeling better because of her, and those words made her feel much more comfortable. Time to leave. At home, they're talking about what happened with our protagonist's vassal, who knows a lot about the gangs, all because of his past life. Yoon believes that's why he's acting strangely, since in recent days he's changed a lot, starring in actions that didn't seem like him at all. And in fact, that's not wrong. He used to be just a delinquent. But now he's completely transformed since he's also very handsome. Yoon couldn't hold back her laughter. Either way, the work of becoming a better person still isn't finished. That made the girl agree with him. They'd both changed a lot, so she decided to kiss him unexpectedly. Our protagonist was left completely speechless. The girl said that's her revenge. After everything that happened, full of embarrassment, she decided to head home right away, leaving our guy behind, watching as she walks away. After catching her breath from running, Yoon started asking herself why she did that. She doesn't know how she's going to look at our protagonist at school. The next day, some extras noticed our guy's absence. It seems this was caused by a fight with gang members. A delinquent wants to use this opportunity to gain power again. All he needs to do is focus on the girls, but not everyone agrees with that idea. For example, Sim Jae is quite pretty now, which changes things. The delinquent doesn't like hearing that and takes out his frustration on an extra, claiming that kind of behavior weakens the school. After losing Yonggi, everything he prayed for, he ordered that after class, his henchmen should bring those girls. Someone behind him warned that this is an excellent plan. Full of rage, the extra looks back, coming face to face with our protagonist. It's time to interrupt that foolproof plan. Even full of fear, the delinquent tried to attack, landing his hand on the protagonist's forehead and hurting himself in the process. Now it's his turn to get hit too, except our guy is much less gentle. All it took was one day of absence for things to nearly spiral out of control. Seok wants to know if the other extras need to be disciplined too, but they assured him they don't want to cause trouble. Our guy got closer to one of them and told them to live a proper life and give up that pathetic life while there's still time to do that. Quite nervous, they decided to agree. In the hallways, Seok found the weird girl. It seems everything is fine with her. She is still very worried about our protagonist, and knowing he's not hurt leaves her quite relieved. Since the vassal was hospitalized, she got worried about him too. A little over a month ago, that girl was completely indifferent, and now she seems to be doing much better. Seok felt a presence behind him. There's someone watching this conversation. Not sensing any danger, he went to see what was happening. Yoon had already managed to flee to another spot, as she almost got caught red-handed. She's still thinking about the kiss she gave our protagonist. That leaves her extremely anxious, believing she got carried away in the moment, and even thinking she's being hated now. After finding her, Seok asked why she's hiding. The girl let out such a loud scream, it was heard on other floors, and the weird girl quickly recognized that voice. Seok also got slapped for having scared his classmate. Even so, he wants to know why she's hiding, and looking at her closely leaves the girl even more intimidated. Without the courage to tell the truth, she preferred to leave that place, but our protagonist held her hand, seeing something unexpected. Her eyes filled with tears. Worried, he decided to hug her immediately. He said he knows why she's like this, so he asked her to calm down. The girl couldn't hold back anymore and cried a lot. Seok wasn't expecting to have to deal with this kind of problem right now, without knowing he was being watched by the weird girl. On the school rooftop, Seok and Yoon went to have some juice. She apologized for what happened, but our protagonist is calm, since he managed to reassure her. Yoon said she got a little emotional, but it's already passed. Our protagonist hopes she doesn't ask him out, and as if reading his mind, she said she wouldn't do anything that stupid. The truth is, she's been so happy recently that she didn't know how to handle it. After being beaten so much by her father, and after hanging around delinquents, life changed a lot in a short time. She doesn't see herself as someone who deserves to be the protagonist of this story. Seok said she should keep trying to be that better person, but they shouldn't forget what she did. That part still hurts her conscience. Seok said if no one wants her, he'd take on that burden, since he's been through something very similar to her. Once again, the girl cried, since those words made her build up expectations. The one left thoughtful by what she saw is the weird girl. Simjae found out her friend was going to cook for the protagonist and wanted to go alone. As a friend, she should have been happy about that, but when she saw the two of them hugging, she felt immediately frustrated. She stopped thinking about that when she saw a crowd gathering in the hallway. The teacher seems to be talking to a student's mother, and that's the weird girl's mother. It's been a while since they last saw each other, leaving the weird girl quite surprised. Her mother grabbed her by the arm and ordered her to come along, all of this while the students watch. Our protagonist immediately had a flash of something, as if he knew something bad is happening. To find out, he needs to leave the rooftop. Simjae said she needs to grab her things first, but her mother said that won't be necessary. From now on, she'll never need to come back to school again. That made the girl stop immediately, not understanding what's happening. Her mother said that from now on, she's going to become a shaman too, and needs to prepare. The girl said she doesn't want that future. She went without her mother for an entire year, and she shows up with this news. That made her get slapped in the face. The old woman said the girl is a fool, and there's no other option. If she doesn't do this, she's going to end up dying. She felt the spirit of death on the girl, a very violent death. To the old woman's surprise, her daughter doesn't want to go, even knowing that. Her life changed recently, and she made great friends, so she'd rather die, making her own decisions. The old woman is ready to strike again, but ended up being stopped by the protagonist. She looks back, quite surprised, while Seok claims that isn't a place for violence, and this woman shouldn't know that, since she's been absent for so long. The weird girl seeing this felt supported, but the shaman insists, freeing herself from our guy's hands. Looking at him, she claimed she found the culprit. This is the demon who's going to take her daughter's life. Seok is completely incredulous, not understanding any of those words at all. Quite confused, our protagonist asked for an explanation, since it makes no sense at all that he's involved in ending his friend's life. But the crazy shaman insists on that, saying he's a demon. Not to mention she's never seen such a dark spirit as his. The boy must have done a lot of evil. Seok started thinking about his past life, since a fatality really did happen. There's so much strange stuff happening, and he can't ignore this. Jay says none of that is true, and that they're friends, as our guy has helped a lot. That argument soon caught the students' attention, who were saying the girl is the daughter of a lunatic. She's becoming the topic of conversation again. The shaman told the fools to shut up, asking if they're not afraid of divine punishment. Jay's embarrassment is only growing. Our protagonist went to talk to her and said the girl should go home that day, claiming he couldn't help her with that matter. Jay was completely shaken. The extras commented that he was very cold, and to Jay, our guy just abandoned his promise. While the shaman tries to say they were never really friends, and that boy is just a monster who's going to ruin everything, she finally managed to return to the temple, taking her daughter too, who's still catatonic. The shaman believes this is the only way to save her daughter, inheriting this strange life. She feels very bad about it, but there's no other option. She threw a book to her daughter with the basics she needs to learn to become a shaman. Serving the spirits isn't an easy task, and she has a lot to learn. She also understands the girl must be full of resentment, but Jay said that's not true. She knows why her mother hadn't been in contact, since she didn't want the girl to get involved in this too. What she's thinking about now is what she lived with our protagonist. If it was going to end this way, she wishes she'd never felt happy. Her mother said there's no other way, and she's also very sad about it. Someone ended up grabbing the book in her place, asking what strange things those are. Our protagonist said it'd be far more useful to learn English. Jay wasn't expecting him to show up there, and the shaman immediately scolded him. Surprisingly, our protagonist knelt down. The old woman asked what he's doing, and our guy said she's right. He's very despicable. Last year, he was one of the people who bullied Jay. That left the old woman furious to the point of wanting to hit our guy. And even doing that, Seok didn't react at all. In fact, he said he deserves to be hit even more. That ended up shaking the old woman quite a bit, calling our guy a monster. Jay never imagined a reaction like this would happen. Our protagonist has just one request to make of her, that Jay keep going to school since he'd risk his own life to protect her. Our guy said this with total seriousness, leaving the shaman surprised, though she claimed our protagonist is talking more nonsense. Since she doesn't want to see him again, she told him to leave. Seok wants to know how his friend's life is going to end, and if she managed to see that scenario. It seems the priestess really did have that vision, but isn't interested in sharing it. That's when someone asked her if she's really satisfied with that decision. The angel appeared to that woman, leaving her completely frozen with fear. She bowed before him, wanting to know why this entity came to visit someone like her. The entity apologized. It didn't want to cause that reaction. The priestess knows she's facing a divine entity. She just doesn't understand why it came to that place. She believes she'll be punished for going against the will of heaven, but the entity said that's not why it came. So there was only one remaining option, our guy. She doesn't believe she'll have to listen to him so that her daughter returns to school and suffers. The entity just watches these complaints. The old woman saw her own daughter locked away, dying abandoned, asking for help. And what makes everything worse, she was saying our protagonist's name, that person she considers completely despicable. The entity realized the priestess is already aware of our guy's existence. Even if he's not to blame, that doesn't matter. He represents danger. So she asked if the entity would save her daughter, since she'd give herself up in her place. Unfortunately, the angel can't make a promise like that. It's not his place to interfere with the order of life and death. The woman asked forgiveness for making that request. The entity said it's been watching the girl for a while now. She's very kind and holds no resentment against anyone, the complete opposite of our protagonist. What he said he did to her in the past is true, but he's also responsible for having saved her, and that left the old woman very surprised, because she never imagined her daughter was being bullied at school. Now the old woman is quite saddened, feeling like a failure as a mother. Her daughter's silence doesn't mean everything's fine. Now she accepted that the entity could do whatever it wants. The angel said she's mistaken about some things. He didn't go there to force a decision, he just wanted her to know something. Nothing is set in stone about what she saw. Even a bad man can change, depending on the circumstances, just like her daughter's future. That ended up bringing hope to that woman, but the entity disappeared, and things went back to normal. Seok asked what had happened, and Jay is worried too. Without any explanation, the priestess hugged her daughter, quite emotional, apologizing for everything she'd done up until now. Jay ended up crying a lot, saying she loves her mother. Our protagonist watches all of this quite confused, as that old woman changed completely. Except he also felt something strange. The same thing when that entity appears. It's time for the shaman to talk to him. She asked if what our guy said is true about the promise he made to her daughter. On his knees once again, he assured her he's giving his word. After a deep sigh, the woman said, "That's not enough." She wants her daughter to be happy too, because of all the suffering she went through. While Jay listens to all of this, Our guy said he understood the message. Before leaving, he also received a talisman. Seok wants to know if that wards off spirits, but according to the shaman, it's meant to attract them, and our guy should keep it on him at all times. Since it's going to be necessary given what our protagonist is, he's still a little apprehensive about having to do that. It seems he became afraid of spirits, and the shaman wasn't expecting him to be scared. It's time for them to leave, but before they do that, Jay said she'd come back to visit her mother. As they head home, Jay apologized for what happened, and our protagonist did the same, leaving his friend quite surprised. He's talking about what he said inside the school. Jay let go of that attitude, since she knows it was very delicate. Seok said he only did that because he wanted the students to stop the rumors, and in fact, he ended up becoming the focus for a moment. Jay never imagined he'd done that on purpose, just to protect her image. For our protagonist, being notorious has its advantages. He also made a promise to her, and he's willing to fulfill it. Jay was so moved that she decided to hug our guy, who wasn't expecting something like that. Without thinking twice, she said she loves him. She found out what happened with Yoon, but she doesn't want to hide what she feels. Our protagonist is at a crossroads. He doesn't know how the girl found out about that. Worried for her, he said the girl is making a mistake, which got her quite confused. Seok asked if she's already forgotten everything he did to her. Our protagonist still carries a lot of guilt, and the girl answered she hasn't forgotten anything. Her friend never left her alone and protected her many times, but she's already accepted that our protagonist likes Yoon. That made Seok tell her she's mistaken about that. That's when Jay revealed she saw the two of them hugging that morning. Seok said that happened by chance, but there's nothing between them. He said the two of them can compete from now on to see who's going to win. For some absurd reason, Jay got very happy with that prognosis, promising to work hard so she doesn't lose our protagonist, who wasn't expecting something like that. He'd have preferred her to be angry. Already inside his house, our guy's father found him. He thought he'd already be sleeping, but the boy has insomnia and decided to ask what kind of person his mother was. The old man told him not to think about those things, and to try to sleep. Seok is still thinking about what happened back then. He usually feels sorry for Jay, but after that day, he felt a bit of envy. In the city, some mobsters are fighting in a widespread way. It's the rival gangs facing off, and Seung and Hwan are there too. Someone tried to attack the Tiger Gang's representative, but he's a very strong and prepared man, not caught off guard by anyone. Seung noticed Sampo brought a lot of men. At this rate, someone's really going to get hurt. He has an idea, but it's not a great one. He's out of options. He challenged Hwan to a fight, just the two of them. If he loses, he'd hand over that neighborhood. That proposal caught the mobster's attention. Hwan believes he already has the advantage, so there's no reason to take that risk. Seung wants to reduce the damage on both sides, and asked if Hwan is scared. Now that he's been provoked, Hwan is much more interested in this. Seung is already properly prepared. After getting a bit closer, they start trading punches, except Hwan wasn't hit. Dodging punches is very easy for him, and he can counterattack. Seung keeps up the provocations, and this time managed to block a kick. That was the contact he needed, but Hwan managed to kick with his other leg, surprising his opponent. It seems Seung isn't going to win. His opponent isn't an ordinary mobster. Rumors say he was once part of the Army's Special Forces. At Seung's side, a knife appeared. Hwan immediately sensed the danger. This fight just became very unbalanced, which ended up leaving Hwan quite worried. But to his surprise, Seung threw the knife away. He doesn't want to take advantage of that edge, even being hurt. He made a man's challenge, and wasn't going to cheat that way. Hwan said his enemy would regret that. Seung's face is already bruised again. He can't even respond to those blows, while Hwan keeps unleashing all his fury. The extras started getting worried, but they can't get involved in this conflict since it was Seung's own request that things be done this way. He finally decided to try to fight back, but keeps getting brutally beaten. His suffering leaves the extras worried. Even so, the shaggy-haired extra still has hope. Seung took a lot of hits, but is still standing. Finally, he managed to catch one of the blows. That's the contact he needs. Hwan doesn't believe that's going to make a difference since his enemy is nearly dead. Finally, he realized the strength that man has. Seung is overflowing with rage. It's time for him to fight back too. Hwan got terrified since he wasn't going to be able to defend against that single blow, which was completely devastating. The extras went wild. Seung is much more confident now. The fight isn't over yet. Hwan seems to be much more intact and was only hit once. However, that blow left him quite affected, as his hands are shaking. Seung knows he was effective since his hand hurts a lot. He wants to know if his birthday needs a rest. Assuming a strange martial arts stance, Hwan is ready to finish everything at once. Seung just mocks that ridiculous stance. The two of them close in again, until a shot was fired. That made both mobsters stop immediately. The police arrived at that place, and surrounded all of them. The officer also told everyone to surrender. Now the extras are desperate. They all try to flee while the officers are handing out affection and attention. The fight between the mob bosses is going to have to stop, Seung said his birthday boy got lucky, while Hwan claimed he's the first to survive a fight like that. But after seeing all that skill, he knows why Seung's subordinates still follow him, and that's exactly why he'll eventually die. He bluffs too much during a fight for a small advantage. He should have used that knife. In the world they live in, that's very important. Seung heard that quite unhappily. He and his henchmen managed to escape the police. The rival gang's attacks are becoming more and more frequent. It almost seems like Sampo has the help of someone important in that place. Seung is so intrigued that he wants to investigate a bit more. He finally arrived at his gang's headquarters. Time to talk to his boss. In no time, he reached the superior's office. There's an old man there accompanied by some young women. Shin is the leader of the Tiger Gang, and he seems strange. Meanwhile, at our protagonist's school, the boy is having to choose which lunch he's going to eat, from Jae or Yoon. Yoon brought hers because she thought our guy would forget, while the weird girl is worried about him. That's why she made a healthy lunch. Now everything's a reason for the two of them to argue a little. Our protagonist brought his own meal from home. His father is cooking for him now, all because of the question he'd asked about his own mother. Even so, Seok has to make a choice. Facing those two unlikely rivals and surprising both of them, he took both lunches. Since he eats a lot, he's going to have to accept both. They got a little happy and a little upset at the same time. Our guy is going to have to set aside his own lunch this time. Now that he's alone, he realized 2 lunches is a lot of food for him. The attention doesn't stop. Yoon brought a soda for our guy, who's still embarrassed by all this affection. Before he could receive the drink, Jae offered him melon tea, which is quite refreshing. The two of them are trying to win his attention. The one who saw this was the principal, outraged at the students' happiness, ready to discipline them. The English teacher is there too, and thought the principal is just jealous. In fact, he wants to know what this delinquent has that's so good to offer. Maybe thugs are popular, but for the English teacher, our protagonist isn't that kind of person. Back to our guy, he's still having problems. Yoon called our guy to go to the amusement park, since she won tickets, while Jae invited him to go to the beach. The first believes this is her best chance. She used all her money to buy those tickets. Jae also wants to be alone with him and would like to be chosen. Having no other option, Seok decided he'd go with both of them. Yoon got very furious. He has to choose someone. This isn't a double date. And our guy said she's mistaken. He never said that's a date. Actually, he's seeing who'll be the best girlfriend, so both of them should feel honored. Yoon doesn't like that. However, Jae said she doesn't mind that attitude. If it's what our protagonist wants, that's fine with her. Yoon is biting her lips over that, but she doesn't intend to give up or be left out of this competition. Seok realized things are getting even more complicated. He tries to be a jerk, but the two of them are amazing. Finally, they arrived at the amusement park. Even having lived there for decades, our protagonist never went to the park. Yoon is eager to show him the rides. The girls played on the carousel, and they all went on very thrilling rides. They also enjoyed the snacks sold at the place. It seems the afternoon was a lot of fun for this trio. At the end of the day, heading back home, admitting it was a lot of fun, Jae would like to know if everything's okay with our guy, since he was forced into this, but the truth is he had a lot of fun. That was without a doubt the most fun day of both their lives. He'd like to know if he could feel worthy of this happiness. The mood soon got heavy. Yoon just saw something scary. Seung is quite beaten up and thrown on the ground, and with him is one of his subordinates. It didn't take long for the young people to recognize him, which leaves our protagonist quite distressed. Yoon knows exactly who he is, that's why she got worried. The subordinate said he's still going to survive. The girl wants to call an ambulance but seems to have been stopped. That mobster doesn't want to do that. Our protagonist immediately got involved. He didn't like seeing the extra touch his friend. When he saw our guy, the mobster immediately recognized him and said he has a request to make. Even if just for a short time, he asked him to hide Seung, or he could be found and killed. Seok doesn't want to do that, imagining they lost a gang fight. They're scared to go to the hospital since they could be arrested. The mobster said they fell into a trap. The Sampo gang did something to them, and now they want to finish off this man. That's why the extra is begging for his boss to be saved. Our guy started remembering what happened when he himself was rescued. After that, Seung finally woke up, surprised he's still alive. At his side is also his subordinate. A girl said to leave him sleeping, since it took him a while to fall asleep. Jae said she's going to change his bandages. Seung remembered her. That's the girl who went to get a haircut once in a dangerous neighborhood. Seeing he'd woken up, Seok went to collect the hospital expenses since they're resting at his house. Seung found out what happened, and is surprised our guy knows how to stitch wounds. It's impressive that someone so young knows how to do all that. Seok already had several wounds caused by knives, so he learned a lot of things. And now that the mobster woke up, it's time to talk, and the Tiger Gang's number 2 should cooperate with that. Seung said everything started 2 weeks ago, at that meeting he had with his boss, that strange old man. He went to inform him what happened in the last gang fight, except the old man isn't worried, trusting Seung completely, who seems very grateful to him. The old man offered Seung some drinks. He also said everything is harder because of the police, handing him a folder. It's that investigator's file, the one who helped our protagonist. That's very privileged information for crime. The Tiger Gang leader got it from Dae-am, someone from the national organization. She's full of mysteries and nobody can get very close. They're embedded in politics and big corporations. Earlier, an order from them arrived for the Tiger Boss containing that file. Seung is very apprehensive since he knows problems with the police tend to be very serious. However, the old man wants to get closer to the national organization. He hopes his subordinate feels the same way. About this officer, they have complete information about his routine. The best time to find him would be in the morning, when he's leaving for work. Seung still doesn't understand why they're so interested in this officer. There's something strange going on. In his subordinate's company, he keeps making observations. But the mission is clear. This officer needs to stop living. Seung is still quite thoughtful. That's why his subordinate offered to do the job. That's a line he hasn't crossed yet, and didn't intend to cross. If he fails this task, he'll certainly be punished. They're mobsters, but Seung is still a very human person. He's going to handle this matter but asked his subordinate not to do anything rash. But what really matters is finding out what Dae-am wants with this. Seok wants to know if this information is true, and Seong said he has no reason to lie. That gang is very well known in the underworld. They can make people disappear and take down small gangs with ease. Seung was wanting to contact them and find out the real reasons behind all of it. He used every connection he had but couldn't get anywhere. Seok said he doesn't need to hear anything else. Our guy's conclusion is that he wasted time and ended up being labeled a traitor. He ended up being attacked by a subordinate and ended up in that deplorable situation. Seung said our guy is partially right. He wasn't attacked by a subordinate. He ended up being surrounded by Hwan and his men, and he brought a message. Seung would really regret that day. Hwan brought a message from the Dae-am gang. They don't need someone who can't take down one cop. And the Tiger Boss himself has a message. He should die and keep quiet. Seung started being attacked, but some men loyal to him are there too. They're not willing to hand him over. The situation just got very complicated. Those men are becoming traitors too, which leaves Seung even more worried, since all of that was caused by his own hesitation. But that doesn't matter. Those men are loyal to Seung because he's an idiot. While some are fighting, the shaggy one is going to flee with his boss, who's in no condition to fight. Seok, after hearing the truth, wants to know what he's going to do. Seung plans to talk to his boss, since his men aren't to blame for anything. This could be very dangerous, but this man would like to save his subordinates. Seok is certain that's a terrible idea, claiming he was deceived. This wasn't caused by Dae-am. His confidence left the mobster intrigued. It doesn't make sense that the order arrived through an envelope. Seung got so angry that he started questioning our guy since what he's saying makes no sense at all. Seok slapped the mobster's throat, who ended up losing his breath. Our guy told him not to move like that so he doesn't reopen his wounds. There's only one person who benefits from his absence. Seung said he did the investigation, and the data about the officer was correct. Even so, this could be a trap. He just needs to think about it more carefully regarding that organization that's existed for many years. Seung can't believe he was fooled by Hwan. Our guy said he just hit a weak point. It's easy to fool gang members, but this is a good sign. As far as he remembers, nobody uses the name Dae-am without consequences. Once, a jerk was punished for that. He even came to ask our protagonist for help, since they were both from Sampo, except our guy couldn't do anything. The real mobster said that Worm makes too much noise, so he ordered them to take care of him immediately. Seok even had to apologize for that man's mistake, because if he hadn't brought that man there, everyone in his gang would be doomed. Seung wants to know how our guy understands so much about the underworld, and he answered that Seung wouldn't believe him if he heard the truth. It didn't take long for the news to reach the big mobster's ears. Now it's time for him to work with his men. Several mobsters are ready to find out the truth. Hwan is doomed. Another flashback of our guy when he was learning from Hwan. He found out about that citizen's military past. Hwan wants to know where he heard something like that and said it's just nonsense. The army pays very poorly. Our guy wants to know if he has any kind of patriotic feeling for the country. Hwan grabbed our guy by the neck and informed him that values like justice or pride are just empty words. And if he heard that again, he'd beat up his own student. Seok doesn't remember much, but he knows his mentor would use a strategy like that. Everyone who misuses Dae-am's name is humiliated and killed. What he did this time was extremely risky. Seok acknowledges he might be missing something. Elsewhere, Hwan is being harshly disciplined by his own gang's boss, who knows the magnitude of the mistake he made. He used all of this to fool Seung, which is very serious. Even if they wanted to destroy their rivals, they did something extremely dangerous. The old man is now spreading the word that they have no connection to Dae-am. Hwan said it might already be too late. Those words left the old man quite worried. Their base is already being invaded by ground troops. That can only mean one thing. What they did has just been discovered. A very powerful old man arrived at that place. The real mobster, Chun-ho, and leader of that organization. Guys, I think Hwan did that on purpose. Desperate, the old man blames his subordinate. Facing the real mobster, Hwan bowed and apologized for what he'd done, since he brought those men to a despicable place. The mobster felt he did that on purpose. Hwan said that's true. It was the only way he had to meet this man. The one who didn't like that was the great old mobster, who's now getting beaten up by his own subordinate. All of this while the old man watches attentively. Hwan said that old man's leadership just ended, slamming his head onto the ground, probably fatally. Now he needs to resolve the situation with the real mobster. He said Hwan is in a very delicate situation and probably wishes he were dead. Hwan apologized again for his actions, but the truth is he has a proposal to make. He'd like to become a member of Daeom too, and could hand over that entire region. The old man can't even believe he's hearing this. He refused the proposal and wants to eliminate everyone. Except Hwan knows that soon there'll be big infrastructure investments in that place, which could increase the conflict between the gangs even more, and that would be terrible for everyone. Now he's really gotten the mobster's attention. However, Sampo isn't the only gang that exists in that place. Hwan said he's already taken care of the biggest obstacle, so it's just a matter of time until he becomes the dominant power. That made the old man quite happy, giving him a 1-month deadline. If in that time he unifies that region, he'll accept Hwan's proposal. But if he fails, he'll wish he were dead. Even nervous, Hwan accepted those terms. At school, Yoon is very worried about that mobster. Our guy said if she keeps worrying about other men, she'll lose points as a potential girlfriend. After getting embarrassed, she revealed she really is worried. Seok told her not to be like that. Mafia life is like that. Even hurt, he didn't stay at the protagonist's house, since he didn't want to involve the young people in that situation. Seok told him not to be prideful, to recover peacefully, believing Hwan is going to be finished off within a few days. Even so, that man wants to follow his own path, since he can't ignore his men who were very loyal to him. Our protagonist said the sacrifice of all those men can't be ignored, and that's exactly what makes Shung so furious. Before leaving, he thanked our protagonist, but if he talked about his subordinates one more time, he wouldn't be forgiven. Seok said he was ungrateful for leaving that way, while Yoon claims our protagonist could have said less nonsense. Seok told her he hates mobsters. They pretend to have honor, but they're all despicable. Even if his conduct is different, Seung is still a mobster. Woon asked what he thinks of her, since she's also the daughter of a piece of garbage. Our protagonist wasn't expecting that, and tried to explain himself, but his friend understood those words. When she was little, her father used to forget her birthday, but Shung didn't. He also paid her hospital bill when she got sick, and gave the alcoholic a job too. Maybe he's not the best of people, but he's someone very kind. That's why our protagonist shouldn't jump to conclusions about him. In fact, both our guy and she used to be despicable people, and now they've changed. That argument really was brutal, and Yoon seems to have matured a lot. After class, they went home. Seok believes the mobster will be fine, unless of course he does something very stupid. Yoon wants to know why our protagonist knows so much about the mafia. She started to think his family might be involved in that too. That's when both of them started hearing shouting. Some mobsters are extorting a very elderly woman. She refuses to do that, but the Sampo men completely ignore her complaint, except that's Tiger Gang territory. While our guy is thinking about the problem, Yoon started running, placing herself in front of the elderly woman, telling those men to stop. Seok got even more worried. This isn't the time to do something like that. Those men could do horrible things. Yoon said she'd already called the police, and they'll arrive soon. She learned from Shung that most mobsters flee when they hear about the police, but those men mocked her, laughing a lot. It seems her bluff didn't work, since they're not afraid of the police. It's time for the protagonist to step in, taking down the first jerk. The other extra got scared and asked who our guy is. Seok said he just went there to give them a beating. That same day, our protagonist returned to the station. It's been a month since the last time, and this time, our guy is there handcuffed. Yoon is with him too, defending our guy, who in her view didn't do anything wrong. The only ones to blame are those worms, who were harassing the elderly woman. The investigator knows they're from Sampo. According to him, the handcuffs are just protocol. Because of the violence that happened, it's hard to explain that as self-defense. Our protagonist was already expecting bureaucratic red tape. However, he's going to be released as soon as those thugs are arrested. Before he could continue talking, a man in a suit showed up there. He's removing the case from that officer's hands, leaving the poor man quite surprised. The prosecutor's representative said he needs those mobsters since they're already under investigation. Before releasing them, the officer asked to see some documents. That made the prosecutor slap him across the face in the middle of the station, surprising everyone, claiming he's a disobedient piece of garbage, and if he keeps acting that way, he'll end up fired. An older officer ended up apologizing for what happened. Seok is the only one not impressed by that. The mobsters on the other side started smiling. Outside, they apologized to the prosecutor. That was observed through the window. They're involved somehow. That left the officer extremely furious. And our guy gave him some advice. He should stay away from this, or even his family could be in danger. Now that he'd delivered the message, our guy said goodbye and left. No matter who he is, going against Dae-am is never a good decision. The officer never imagined he was going after that organization. Yoon is worried about our protagonist's silence and asked if he's hurt. Seok said the situation is even worse. The Sampo gang now has support from the institutions themselves. Yoon understood what that means. A sign that Dae-am decided to associate with them, which is really quite complicated. Seok told the girl to pay close attention to what he's about to say, for her safety. Those worms who got beaten up told Hwan everything. He got very disappointed with their attitude. The worms said now that they have Dae-am's support, everything's easier, nobody can mess with them. Hwan immediately grabbed a chair to punish that filth, who doesn't know how to behave like a mobster. The discipline continued. What they're doing could jeopardize everything they're building. Hwan also found out our protagonist got involved in that problem, since the thug still remembers when our guy was captured. That changes things. Hwan has a strange feeling about our guy, who proved to be very confident for someone his age. Not to mention he knows the world of the mafia very well, and when they fought, it was as if they knew each other. Hwan is eager to get some answers about our protagonist. At night in a park, a man prepares to act. Some mobsters are walking downtown, and one of them needs to use the bathroom. He decided to do that in a dark alley. After hearing a noise, his companion went to see what happened, finding his ally knocked down on the ground. Going to help him, he didn't notice someone approaching from behind. Now both of them are down on the ground. The mobster hunt has begun. At school, Jae found out about what happened the day before, but she's happy nothing happened to our protagonist who missed school that day. Yoon is also quite worried, especially after what he told her. Jae is thinking about his involvement with the underworld. The two of them were interrupted by the arrival of an extra, who seems to have bad intentions. That's the same jerk who tried to attack Yoon. Without thinking twice, she grabbed her friend by the arm to leave, but the jerk said he just came to talk. He found out our guy ended up at the police station after fighting with some mobsters. Yoon wants to know where he heard that, while the jerk claims rumors spread fast. He offered his own help to protect them, which was promptly refused by the girls. That made him resort to violence, but before he could hit her, he was stopped by our protagonist's vassal, who's really extremely loyal to him. The jerk said he's not understanding the situation, but the vassal is very faithful. He keeps believing in our protagonist after seeing him fight against 3 mobsters alone. Because of that, he's willing to protect our protagonist's girlfriends. Completely distracted, he ended up getting kicked in the back. With that, he fell to the ground and started getting beaten. Students quickly gathered to watch that fight. Jae started screaming, and someone recognized her voice. That jerk extra is ready to become even more despicable. That's when our protagonist arrived, asking what's happening. Yoon felt relieved, but asked why he arrived late, while Jae noticed something's wrong with his face. Our protagonist is quite hurt. Yoon asked what he'd done, since the day before he wasn't like that. The jerk is sure that was caused by the mobsters. Now it's his chance to defeat our guy, and using brass knuckles, he's ready to attack. But since he's a piece of garbage, he ended up getting hit first, falling to the ground with a bruised face. With much more rage than usual, Seok asked if that piece of garbage got an order from Hwan, but the poor guy seems to know nothing. Even so, he took a brutal beating. The students who witnessed this got scared. Jae had to hold back our protagonist, who was already overdoing it. Finally, he went back to normal after leaving that worm completely obliterated. Now that he's been beaten again, he apologized for what he did. The guy in glasses keeps watching everything. Guys, that extra had disappeared, and only shows up in moments like this, watching silently. Seok went to the rooftop with Yoon, asking if she did what had been asked. Jae is there too, listening to the conversation. The girl said she did what he'd asked. She and her father left home and are staying at a cheap hotel. That left our guy a bit more relieved, since her father is still with the Tiger Gang, and the situation is getting quite worrying. Yoon held our guy by the face, but he quickly pushed her hands away since he's quite distracted. Yoon said she's very worried. She left her house and now saw our protagonist all bruised. Seok just told her not to worry since he fell down the stairs, which is a clear lie. As he insists on that story, the girl got even more upset. Leaving the rooftop, he found Jae. After looking deeply at her, our guy went on his way and told them to go back to class soon. but Jay remains very worried about him, and what our protagonist wants most right now is to not involve them in these problems. In English class, the teacher continues teaching the basics. It didn't take long for her to notice our guy, who's quite hurt. The night before, he interrogated some mobsters. One of them quickly realized it was Seok. The mask isn't enough to hide him. The boy wants an answer now, or else he'll bury this mobster alive. But he got worried when he realized his identity had been discovered. Even with the mobster subdued, he's not getting the answers he wants. That made him dedicate himself a bit more, demanding an answer to his question, who's backing them? The mobster just mocked that question, revealing that the whole gang has an order to capture our protagonist. Seok wanted to know what Hwan wants with him. It didn't take long for other mobsters to find him. They all ganged up on our guy. That's why he got so hurt. But Seok still has no answers. He's only met Hwan once and is already being chased by him. Class ended a few minutes ago, and the teacher went to talk to our guy. They went to another room, and our guy asked what the matter is. The teacher said she's very worried about him. Seok said it's not necessary. Young guys like him end up fighting from time to time. But the teacher knows he's changed and he's no longer the same person. That's why she's still worried. Faced with her concern, Seok apologized, revealing he's facing a personal problem and can't be honest about it. The teacher understood his reasons. And unexpectedly, she gave our guy a hug, claiming he doesn't need to carry that weight alone. If things get too hard, he can count on her too. Despite everything, Seok agreed with that. Leaving school, he ended up finding the weird girl, who waited for him so they could go home together. After a few minutes, our guy asked not to be followed. That made Jay ask if he hates her. But our guy had already explained the situation. He's being chased by a gang. Except that doesn't seem like a plausible justification to the weird girl. Having no other option, he decided to go back accompanying her, which ended up leaving her momentarily happy. The truth is, he should have prevented that from happening. It didn't take long for them to be found by Hwan. This is the worst possible situation. A mobster said our guy almost looks like a normal person. Seok got quite furious seeing him in that place. Hwan said this was going to happen anyway, after his men were attacked. Our guy told him to get straight to the point and say why he's coming after him. Hwan said his old boss was looking for new subordinates, so he went after young people who knew how to fight. And as soon as he found our protagonist, he found him very strange. He's certain he's not a conventional student. Quite nervous, Seok is wondering if his second life was discovered by someone. By the expression he made, Hwan is certain he's right, believing that the real Seok's identity was stolen. After being confused for a moment, our guy asked what that means. Hwan believes our guy is a mobster who had problems and is starting over with a new identity. Seok got embarrassed by that absurd hypothesis, but he's also nervous because of the girl accompanying him. Jay wants to know if that's true and if our guy is lying to her. However, that's a much more plausible story than the actual truth. Seok asked if the girl trusts him. She remembered when our guy made her a promise. As soon as she said she trusts him, Seok threw a punch, hitting a mobster who was trying to approach. Seok told the girl to turn around and go back to school, but she doesn't want to leave him alone with all those thugs. Our guy called her an idiot, claiming he made a promise to her mother. If she doesn't flee, things are really going to get complicated. Finally, the silly girl decided to obey. The henchmen aren't going to make this easy, but they need to worry about something more urgent. Full of rage, Seok claimed nobody's going to cross that line. Not even for that does he have to die. Hwan really likes that confident attitude. A short time later, several were already injured, including our protagonist. Hwan is becoming more and more certain of his own theory, recognizing excellent qualities in our guy. Seok tries to attack his old mentor since he's the last obstacle, but all he managed to do was get hit. And this time his ribs couldn't handle the impact. The boy fell to the ground, quite weakened. Hwan extended his hand to him and asked our guy to become his subordinate, since they'd reached the top together. Seok can't believe that invitation. Hwan said he's being very honest. He doesn't even care about our guy's identity, but he's certain that with his company, they can reach the top of Daeom. Seok asked if he's serious, and once again Hwan said it's true, otherwise he wouldn't have started something so reckless. Seok said Hwan is even more incredible than he thought. He never imagined receiving an offer like that. The two of them are almost shaking hands. That's when Hwan got surprised. Our protagonist offered him the middle finger. Being king of the underworld doesn't matter to him. It's just a joke. A childish dream our guy doesn't want to be part of. Completely furious, Hwan kicked our guy, calling him an arrogant fool who doesn't know where he belongs. Seok doesn't care if he dies now. He's not going back to being a mobster. Hwan knows our guy likes to bluff, that's why he keeps preparing. He managed to capture the weird girl. For the love of God, what a useless idiot. As far as I'm concerned, she can die right now. Seok was certain she'd managed to flee, but Hwan wasn't going to let that happen. He came fully prepared. His men were already all over that region. Renewed by rage, our guy tried to attack again, but he's ridiculously weak compared to Juan. Seeing him get beaten leaves the weird girl worried, and our guy wants, at least, to save her from that situation. But he still can't overcome the obstacle in front of him. Juan said if the boy changes his mind, he should go to the gang's headquarters. Until then, they'll take very good care of his girlfriend. Our guy passed out after the kick, heard some things, but saw nothing, until finally he woke up in a hospital room. At his side is his second girlfriend, quite worried. He's still too injured to move. Sok finally remembered what happened the day before, asking where Jay is. But the news isn't good. The girl never came home. That can only mean one thing, which leaves our protagonist even more furious. He shouted inside that hospital, completely devastated. Seok has no more time to waste. He needs to save the girl, even with broken ribs. The investigator is there too, and held our protagonist back, saying he needs to calm down now, since he was unconscious for 2 whole days. That officer already had some suspicions. He just wasn't expecting the gang to kidnap that girl. Yoon told the officer to act quickly and rescue her, but he tried even before our protagonist woke up, and ended up being the target of a disciplinary process. Seok said there's a way to solve this. He's going to go there alone and do what Juan wants. Better than any of them, our guy knows he can't defy organized crime. If it means keeping the girl safe, there's no other option. He's going to have to go back to the world of crime. After leaving the hospital even hurt, Seok is determined. What happened haunts his mind, and he wants to rescue his girlfriend. Yoon got very worried knowing he's going to become a mobster again. The officer didn't like that solution either, but there seems to be no other way. Jay has already suffered a lot because of our guy. He's not going to let that repeat itself. That's why he's going to become a subordinate of the mafia. Once again, the angel appeared to our guy, wanting to know if he's satisfied with that decision. This is going to make his effort completely useless. Our guy isn't even surprised anymore to see that damned angel, no longer caring about his advice, since he's made his decision. The entity noticed he's very determined. Seok feels he can't escape that life, and he tried very hard to stay away from it. Maybe this is his punishment for all the mistakes he made. Even having lived just a few months, a lot of things have happened. His life is taking a completely different route, and in fact he tried to do that, and asked the angel for forgiveness for disappointing him. Smiling at that, the entity called our guy an arrogant fool, since it's still not disappointed in him, given that Seok is no longer the same person. Someone ended up finding our guy on that street, since they found out he's in poor health. Seung and his men just showed up too, to our guy's surprise. Seung took a while to find his men, and is having to avoid his enemies. On that same street is the officer too, ready to support this young man. Last but not least, Yoon is there too. After slapping our guy, she revealed she's terribly worried about him. Seok never thought he'd be this important to those people. Since even his vassal found out what happened, that's what the entity wanted to say. Seok isn't alone in this world anymore. After looking at all his allies, our guy bowed in respect and asked for help. Jay is still being held hostage by those worms. Juan went to her asking how the girl is doing. He said her boyfriend is running a bit late, so she'll have to wait a bit longer. Jay would like to know why he's going so far for the sake of a young man. Juan revealed our guy makes him remember his youth. A few years ago, he was a soldier fighting for his country. One day, he dedicated his life to very beautiful ideals. After 10 years risking his own life, he realized those words are empty. The only thing that matters in this world is power, which is born from money. Jay said he's wrong. Seok can be a bit stupid sometimes, but he doesn't make others suffer because of his own greed. Juan covered the girl's mouth with his hand and said he'll take care of that part. Jay got desperate and thought of our guy, asking for help. Seok felt that immediately. It was as if he could hear her voice. What he doesn't know is that the amulet he carries started glowing. Time for a strategic meeting. Seok identified an efficient route. He knows about a passage made for fleeing in case of attacks. The officer is surprised our guy knows so much about that. He also said they need to know where the girl is, since she could be in another region. Sung realized this isn't going to be easy, and once again our guy's head started hurting. He's hearing the girl's voice in his head, and she keeps asking for help, which leaves our protagonist even more affected. Yoon wants to know what's happening. That's when our guy remembered the amulet. Taking it out, he saw the paper is glowing. That old witch really wasn't lying about this. And now, he's the one who can talk to an astral entity. He's scared since that shaman is really a real shaman, and our guy saw where his girlfriend is. Some mobsters are guarding a building. The vassal started provoking them, claiming he came for revenge. Little by little, the mobsters are being provoked. This is definitely the vassal's mission, who keeps bothering those pieces of garbage. Completely furious, they decided to settle it with violence. Elsewhere, the officer conducts his investigations, but the mobster says he needs a warrant to do that, which made the officer show the warrant right away. If there's one thing he hates, it's those mobsters, and now it's time to deliver a bit of suffering. What the officer's doing soon reached Hwan's ears. A lot of problems are happening. Seung and his men are there too at the front door. He came ready to get his revenge. Yoon tried to enter a street but was blocked by the mobster on guard duty. Pretending to be lost, she asked for help and asked if that handsome mobster could show her the location. While the fool gets distracted, Seok appeared behind him. After putting him to sleep, they can keep moving. Seok managed to grab some keys that Worm had. Things are going to get dangerous now, so the girl should head back. Before she does that, she decided to kiss our protagonist, asking him to come back safe. Properly motivated, Seok promised he would. Following his mission, Seok remembered he's a piece of garbage. He did a lot of hateful things to get to the top, and even now, he keeps dragging good people into his problems, ruining their lives in the process. No matter how many apologies he has, they won't be enough. Our guy doesn't believe he deserves forgiveness. But even so, he still wants to save the girl, finally finding Jae, who was being held. She can't even believe what she's seeing. Since he was quite worried, Seok hugged her, very emotional, since he'd like to apologize to her, who deserves none of that. Jae told him to calm down since everything's fine now. Hwan was in that place too, waiting for our guy. It's time for them to settle some things. Our protagonist already knew this was going to happen. The sadistic mobster wants to know if our guy is finally going to join them. Seok didn't imagine his plan would be discovered. Hwan revealed he wouldn't have fallen for that, even if he wanted to, as soon as he found out about the multiple attacks. He was certain something would happen. Our guy felt relieved. Now he has the chance to settle this with his own hands. But he ended up getting kicked in his broken ribs, leaving his girlfriend terrified. Hwan said our protagonist is an insolent child. He was no match to defeat him even when he was healthy. Now that he's hurt, the chances are even lower. Seok said he's going to finish him off, but the mobster can't believe that. He's going to have to teach him a harsh lesson. That's when the protagonist decided to fight back, managing to throw his enemy to the ground. Now that he's on top, he's ready to continue his attack, landing several blows against that thug. Hwan is in a disadvantaged position. That's why he aimed exactly at the ribs, making our guy back off a bit. Seok realized his enemy doesn't seem to be fully intact either. Furious, Hwan had to attack with all his strength. This time he managed to land a direct blow, but it didn't take long for our guy to fight back with the same intensity. Hwan can't believe what's happening. That boy was hospitalized just a few days ago, and doesn't look like it. So he asked why our protagonist keeps getting back up. Seok immediately looked back toward his girlfriend, claiming Hwan would never figure out what that is. The two of them go back to trading devastating blows. Except this time, the mobster couldn't stay standing. His body fell weakened to the ground. Our protagonist can hardly believe it. His girlfriend asked if he's okay, since it's time to leave that place. Seok said the others are still in trouble and need help, but they were surprised by what they saw on the way. The police is already arresting some thugs. Not even the investigator knows what happened, only that someone called the police, a sign that there was no interference from Dayam. If you noticed, someone's been keeping an eye on our guy. I knew it. It's that student in glasses. He's an angel. Finally, the problem was solved. The investigator went back to his job. Seung went back to being his gang's number 2. It's time for Hwan to face his punishment. The old man asked if he has any last words, and he acknowledged our protagonist was right. He was chasing a childish dream. The bigger mobster agreed with that. A rat like him could never reach the stars. It's time to eliminate him, and that's how Hwan disappeared. As for our guy, he went back to his normal problems of having 2 girlfriends. On the way to school, he ran into that friend in glasses. Said they should have a meal together, so he invited him, but the boy said he needs to go to work. Once again, someone interrupts our guy's life. Wearing another school's uniform, they're asking him to come with them. Our protagonist's girlfriends can't even believe this is happening. Seok has a real knack for violence. It's time to practice a bit more.